Chapter 100. There was a martial arts school next to Rosefinch Secondary called Watching Glory Martial Arts School. Most of the students in the martial arts school were boys. They were at the age where they were full of energy. Relying on their good skills, they often went outside the school to fight. Because the two schools were close, Glory Martial Arts School students and Rosefinch Secondary students often had conflicts. Glory Martial Arts School students would either snatch Rosefinch's students' girlfriends or force Rosefinch's students to give them a pack of cigarettes or borrow 200 yuan to spend. Rosefinch Secondary students were proud and arrogant. Naturally, they were not willing to be bullied like this. Students from the two schools secretly fought several times outside. Every time, Rosefinch suffered a crushing defeat. Rosefinch's crushing defeat encouraged the arrogance of Glory Martial Arts School students. They often went to Rosefinch's students' territory to show off their strength and beat up whoever they didn't like. Sometimes, when they ate at the same restaurant as Rosefinch's students, they were especially cruel and merciless when ordering dishes. After eating and drinking in high spirits, they pointed at Rosefinch's students and said it was their treat before leaving. Rosefinch's students were angry but didn't dare to say anything. They could only obediently accept this disguised extortion. Rosefinch's principal also went to negotiate with the martial arts school because of the students' reaction. The result of the negotiation was that the martial arts school would record demerits to the offending student. However, why would the martial arts school students care about this? After the punishment, they became even more aggressive in bullying Rosefinch's students. The buzz cut was called Wang Hui. He was a student of Glory Martial Arts School. He was also the student leader of Glory Martial Arts School. Martial arts schools were different from other cultural schools. As long as you could fight, the students would respect you. Wang Hui relied on his knowledge of Kai boxing to beat everyone in the school. Even some of the weaker instructors couldn't beat him, which further fostered his lawless personality. This Hunan restaurant was opened in front of Rosefinch Secondary's entrance. However, martial arts students nowadays love to go to Rosefinch's students' territory. When Wang Hui was playing finger-guessing and drinking with his friends, he heard the waiter who came out from inside hurriedly tell his boss that someone in the private room had eaten a glass. People who loved martial arts were most interested in this kind of anecdote. After Wang Hui found out about the situation, he asked the restaurant owner, Su Bin, to invite the master who could eat glass to come out and perform for everyone. If he performed well, their meal would be on Wang Hui's tab. Su Bin knew that Wang Hui was a student of Glory Martial Arts School and did not dare to offend him. Therefore, he used the opportunity of delivering food to invite Fang Yan, but he didn't expect Fang Yan's attitude to be so bad that he rejected him flatly. Su Bin was worried that the conflict between the two parties would bring disaster to the restaurant. After returning, he told Wang Hui that the guests in the private room were busy catching up with each other and could not come out to perform for the time being. Wang Hui was furious. He felt that he was being looked down upon and insulted. Thus, he led a group of students and barged into the private room while cursing. Su Bin tried to persuade them again and again, but he was still unable to quell the inexplicable anger of Wang Hui and the others, as well as the inexplicable feeling of being insulted. Wang Hui and the others were originally making trouble out of nothing. Now that Fang Yan asked them where their faces were, it gave them a reason to beat people up. Although they usually did not need a reason to beat people up, they always felt that it was not very exciting when they beat people up. During the nights of heavy rain, Wang Hui had stood in front of the window countless times, painfully thinking about why he felt so powerless. Later on, he finally understood. They didn't beat people up openly and righteously enough. Because of their guilty conscience, they could not get excited when they fought. If they had a more adequate reason to beat people up, if they had to beat people up no matter what, then wouldn't they be more into the character? Wang Hui understood. To Wang Hui, Fang Yan, who fought back verbally, was a pure and cute little angel. Just when they were about to sleep, someone took the initiative to give them a pillow. It really made them happy. Wang Hui stared at Fang Yan with a teasing look and said with a smile, "Bro, do you know who you are talking to? I can't even see your face, how would I know who you are?" Fang Yan said with a face full of sarcasm. "Just based on your buzz cut and your personality that likes to court death, I really can't associate you with any beast. Brother Hui, we have met someone who is not afraid of death. Hee hee, our glorious brothers have never been slapped in the face like this before, what? Which brother wants to go and spar with this pretty boy?" A big battle was about to break out. Su Bin was almost anxious. He stood between Wang Hui and Fang Yan and said with a pleading face, "Big brothers. Big brothers, you are all my brothers. It is not easy for me to open a shop to support my family. Can you let me go? Today's expenses will all be on me. Just treat it as me treating you to a meal. Is that okay? Calm down, I will get someone to send you a few bottles of beer." Su Bin knew that these martial arts school students were young, but they were fierce and ruthless when they fought, as if they did not care about their lives. If he let them fight in the private room, his small shop would suffer heavy losses. If he allowed them to hurt the customers, things would become even more troublesome. Wang Hui sneered and scolded, "Who needs a sip of beer from you? Su Bin, you better hide far away. Otherwise, our brothers have no eyes. If we hit you, just blame it on your bad luck. Brother Wang, scram." Wang Hui kicked Su Bin, this annoying fellow, away. Wang Hui looked at Fang Yan, who was sitting motionless in his seat, and his heart was filled with even more anger. This brat was really daring. He had already announced Glorious Martial Arts School's name, and he was still as steady as Mount Tai. Clearly, he did not put them in his eyes. Wang Hui turned to look at the brothers behind him and asked, "Who wants to go up and weigh in first?" "Me." A black fat boy stood up and said with a smile, "Brother Hui, leave the first round to me. I like to trample on this kind of soft and tender pretty boy." Fang Yan's face was delicate, and his skin was white and tender. He indeed looked like the type that the black fat boy liked to trample on. "Paw!" Fang Yan slapped the table and shouted angrily, "Who are you calling a pretty boy? If you have the guts, scold me again." "Pretty boy, so what if I'm scolding you?" The black fat boy said, unconvinced. "You can call me a pretty boy, but I have to correct you on something. Not only am I white, I'm also very talented. I'm a talented pretty boy." Fang Yan said. Which man didn't like being called a pretty boy? The black fat boy opened his mouth, not knowing how to continue. He practiced martial arts all day, so his literary skills were not good. Encountering this kind of literary ruffian, he was quite powerless to deal with him. "Old Black, why are you talking nonsense with him? Just beat him to the ground," someone urged from behind. The black fat boy thought about it and agreed. He couldn't win against him in words, so just beat him up. That was what he was good at. So, he roared and sank his chi into his dantian. His body was like a small mountain crushing towards Fang Yan. The black fat boy was called Huang Dongxing, nicknamed Barbarian Bull. His martial arts were profound and exquisite, and his strength could be ranked in the top 3 among this group of people. When fighting, he was a strong meat shield, and ordinary people really couldn't do anything to him. Barbarian Bull's momentum was fierce, and when he moved, he was like a crazy iron bull, rushing towards his target. At this moment, Fang Yingying moved. He just moved his mouth and spat out a fish bone in his mouth. Pooh! The slender fish bone was like a small silver needle, flying straight towards Barbarian Bull's face. It was just a fish bone, Barbarian Bull didn't take it seriously at all. He didn't dodge, and faced the fish bone head-on. "Ah!" Barbarian Bull screamed, and his body staggered towards the corner of the private room. Wang Hui and his companions were all stunned. It was just a fish bone, was there a need for such a big reaction? This guy couldn't be so passive, was he deliberately looking for an excuse to slip away? Barbarian Bull, aren't you a little too brat? A boy with a Hunan accent said aloud. The fight hasn't even started, and you're already playing dead. It hurts. Barbarian Bull raised his head, and a slender blood mark appeared on his face. The fish bone that Fang Yingying spat out had drilled into the flesh of his face, and pierced his teeth. Everyone was shocked, and looked at Fang Yingying with eyes full of surprise and fear. Wasn't this guy too powerful? Spitting out a fish bone could injure someone like this. Wang Hui was not only good at fighting, but also had a very good eye. He knew that he couldn't do this move. Spitting could hurt people, and if it was just the strength of the mouth, it would cause almost zero damage to a martial artist like Barbarian Bull. However, even Barbarian Bull couldn't withstand it, which proved that this guy used Qigong. Experts who knew Qigong were rare in society. Even if they had a lot of people present, they wouldn't necessarily be able to gain any advantage. Wang Hui's eyes tightly stared at Fang Yingying, and he asked in a deep voice, "Brother, where did you come from?" Fang Yingying laughed and said, "I don't have any background. I just saw that he was a fatso, and I was also a fatso, so the two of us were a pair. I didn't expect him to be so weak. Why don't you try another one for me?" Wang Hui looked at Fang Yingying, and then looked at the brothers behind him with fear, and said, "Mountains and rivers will meet again. Today, us brothers admit defeat. Next time we meet, we'll have a good fight with you guys." Brilliant Martial School's name was awe-inspiring, and the school motto was also very down-to-earth: if you can win, then fight. If you can't win, then run. He waved his hand, indicating the brothers behind him to help Barbarian Bull up, and everyone ran. "Wait!" Fang Yan shouted. Wang Hui's heart suddenly jumped, and he said, "Brother, what other advice do you have? First, don't call me brother. Second, I don't have any advice." Fang Yan's tone was very unkind as he said, "Don't talk to me about mountains and rivers will meet again. The mountain is so high, and the river is so long, it's really difficult to meet again. Since we met today, let me give you a good beating." Chapter 101. Since we've met today, let me give you a good beating. Hearing this, Wang Hui had the urge to kneel down on the spot. Look, how refreshing and satisfying these words are. Not only does it show that I'm very cultured, but it's also very novel to those who hear it. It had to be said that in this world, there were many things that required talent. For example, acting cool. Wang Hui and his friends usually used the following two ways of acting cool: first, the fiery type. Second, the iceberg type. The so-called fiery type was when they were shirtless or rolled up their sleeves, shouting at others with their faces red and necks flushed, "Try and touch me, believe it or not, I'll cut you up, believe it or not, I'll beat you up until your mother can't recognize you. Brothers, get your weapons." The iceberg type of acting cool was slightly more technical, and it had certain requirements for the individual's appearance. Not everyone could use it. First of all, you couldn't be too ugly, and your body couldn't be too fat. If you were a fat man with a wretched face, even if you pretended to be cold, ruthless, and cruel, as if you would kill a pig for fun when you had nothing to do, people might still laugh at you when they saw you. Your plate had to be bright, and your bar had to be straight. Tall and straight, incomparably noble and elegant standing there. Don't look directly at the opponent's eyes, it's best to look at the top of his head, and a devilish sneer appearing at the corner of your mouth. Yes, the key was the word devilish. Don't laugh foolishly, and don't laugh randomly. You must show an arrogant attitude that you're a pile of dog shit, and I don't care about you at all. What? What kind of smile can be called devilish? Who should I ask if you ask me? Look at yourself in the mirror and find the feeling. Also, he mustn't laugh out loud. If you make a sound, your acting cool style will immediately drop by 25%. After the facial movements were adjusted, all that was left was the voice attack. With a calm expression and a cold and arrogant voice, he said, "Brothers, get your weapons and beat him up until his mother can't recognize you." Of course, whether it was the fiery type or the iceberg type, they were different routes to the same goal. In the end, they still had to beat the opponent up. Wang Hui was a fan of the iceberg type. He felt that a reputable person like him should choose this more technically difficult way of showing off in order to show the outside world that he had a strategic plan and that everything was under control. However, after listening to Fang Yan's beating lines, he felt a sense of inferiority. He felt that Fang Yan's way of showing off was neither the Raging Fire or the Iceberg Mountain style, but a way that was more advanced than the Raging Fire and the Iceberg Mountain style. The cultured and elegant style. His eyes were gentle, his face was smiling, and he spoke nicely when he said that he wanted to beat you up. You would be too embarrassed to refuse after hearing these words, an expert, Wang Hui praised in his heart. Therefore, Wang Hui was even more unwilling to fight with Fang Yan. He looked at Fang Yan and said coldly, "What? You're not letting me leave. Is this restaurant owned by your family?" Fang Yan laughed and looked at Wang Hui. He felt that this guy was very interesting. When he came in, he looked like he was the number one in the world and he could bully whoever he wanted. He wanted his brothers to beat him up at the slightest disagreement. In the end, he kicked the iron plate that was Fang Yingying. After his brother was stabbed by a fishbone, he became fearful and wanted to turn around and leave. This made Fang Yan feel very aggrieved in his heart. Why could the bad guys hit people whenever they wanted and leave when they couldn't beat them? Those good guys who couldn't beat them could only be bullied by them. Those good guys that they couldn't beat, were they just going to watch them leave? It was unfair. Therefore, no matter what, Fang Yan had to make him stay and beat him up today. "I don't own this restaurant, and it's not yours either." Fang Yan pointed to the private room door that was about to collapse and said, "My friend and I were sitting and eating. What's the matter with you coming over and kicking my door?" Wang Hui glanced at Su Bin, and Su Bin hurriedly said, "It's okay. It's okay. Anyway, the door has been broken for a long time. I was looking for someone to fix it. This is not a problem at all. Brothers, let's just forget about this matter, shall we? I will let the brothers who kicked the door pay for Boss Li's door," Wang Hui said. "This door, we will pay to fix it." "But you insulted us," Fang Yan said. "You came to kick the door when we were eating, and you even wanted to rush over and beat us up. Isn't this insulting us?" Wang Hui looked at the few dishes on Fang Yan's table and said to Su Bin, "Boss Su, put the meal these brothers ate today on my tab." Although Wang Hui was talking to Su Bin, the content of his words was already apologizing to Fang Yan. No, it's on me. It's all on me." Su Bin really wanted to keep the peace, but after seeing Wang Hui's murderous eyes, he quickly changed his words and said, "Okay, since Brother Hui wants to pay the bill, then put it on Brother Hui's tab." Fang Yan knocked on the table with his chopsticks and said, "I don't have the habit of letting a bastard I don't know pay for me. My 2 juniors came all the way to Huaqing to find me. This is the first meal I'm treating them to in Huaqing. This meal, I'll pay for it myself." Wang Hui's eyes narrowed, and he looked at Fang Yan and asked, "What? You don't want to let it go?" Wang Hui could be considered to have a high IQ. The brothers behind him who were more hot-tempered directly opened their mouths and started scolding. Where did this wild dog come from? How dare he behave atrociously in front of us brilliant men? Brother Hui, why are you treating him to a meal? We brothers can't afford to lose face like this. We don't have much else, but we have strength. Leave the money for your meal for us brothers to buy drinks. That's right. If we all attack together, they might not be our match. I'll go out and call more brothers in. It's not that I don't want to let it go, it's a different matter, Fang Yan said. You made a mistake to me, so I'll beat you up. Turning over a new leaf is something to do after you get beaten up. Wang Hui didn't say anything. His sharp eyes swept between Fang Yan, Fang Yingying, and Fang Haohen's faces and bodies, weighing the approximate chances of his side winning if they were to fight. Fang Yingying seemed to be an expert. If he went up against him, with the help of his two brothers, it wouldn't be hard to take him down. However, the strength of this pretty boy and that skinny tall guy was unknown, so the outcome was unknown. Wang Hui was young and full of vigor. He was a prideful person to begin with, and with his brothers fanning the flames behind him, Fang Yan's aggressiveness also made him stifle a bellyful of anger. He quietly put on a gauntlet on his right hand. For these martial arts school students who treated fighting as their daily routine, these offensive equipment were always carried around. We are students of Glory Martial School. The school is diagonally opposite the restaurant. You might not understand the situation of us martial arts school students. Although we usually fight fiercely in school, if someone is bullied by outsiders, we will band together to help them get back at them. Wang Hui pointed at Barbarian Bull, whose face was still bleeding, and said, You can injure one of our brothers, but can you injure all of our brothers? You can beat everyone in this private room, but can you beat everyone in Glory Martial School? The more Wang Hui spoke, the more excited his body became, and his expression became impassioned. This matter, we'll just leave it at that. Next time we meet, I'll treat you guys to a drink. Otherwise, the three of you can forget about leaving this restaurant today. Are you done? Fang Yan asked. I'm done, Wang Hui said. Heroes and warriors, F***ck this guy. Fang Yan roared. Stinking hooligan, even at this time, you still dare to threaten people. I'm not someone who can't be subdued by force. The key is that you have to be strong enough. Fang Yingying was the first to jump up. This chubby fatso's movements were astonishingly fast, almost making it hard for the naked eye to follow. He clenched his hands into fists and punched Barbarian Bull, who was standing closest to him and hadn't had time to escape the battlefield, in the eye socket. Barbarian Bull grunted and fell backwards. The private room was very narrow. When Barbarian Bull fell backwards, he blocked the path of his two companions who were supporting him. Fang Yingying fought force with force. His body bounced up like a meatball, and he used all his strength to kick Barbarian Bull's chest. Thump! Barbarian Bull was tall and heavy. Under his great strength, the two companions behind him fell to the ground before him. Then, Barbarian Bull's body heavily pressed down. Ah! The sound of bones breaking came from the ground. When Fang Yingying made his move, Fang Haohen also made his move at the same time. He saw someone wearing a knuckle duster pouncing towards him. He picked up the glass cup on the table and threw it out. The scalding hot tea splashed on the body of the knuckle duster. Then, he stuffed the glass cup in his hand into his mouth and fiercely bit it. Gotcha! A sharp chip appeared on the glass cup. The bit that was bitten off was chewed and swallowed into his stomach. The remaining half of the glass cup became a sharp weapon. Fang Haohen held the sharp weapon in his hand and fiercely rushed towards the knuckle duster. Clang! The glass cup just happened to block the knuckle duster's attack. Fang Haohen kicked out. At this time, the advantage of a kick was revealed. Before the knuckle duster could lift his leg, Fang Haohen's big foot had already stamped on his stomach. Bang! A muffled groan was heard. The knuckle duster's body was sent flying. Fang Yingying and Fang Haohen were like tigers entering a flock of sheep, rampaging around. Every punch landed on flesh. Every time they made a move, there would be a mournful scream. Moreover, their movements were abnormally nimble. Those students from Glory Martial School had no way of touching their bodies. When the two of them stopped, there was only one student from Glory Martial School left standing in the private room. Wang Hui's eyes widened as he looked at the hero. His right hand that was holding the knuckle duster trembled slightly. "Call me brother," Wang Hui shouted at his companion who was standing stupidly at the door. That brother was dumbstruck and lost his normal human reaction. Chapter 102. Wang Hui knew that Fang Yingying was strong, but he didn't expect him to be so strong. Wang Hui didn't expect Fang Haohen to be so strong. He didn't expect him to be stronger than Fang Yingying. Heroes were so strong, then, wasn't this guy who had been sitting there eating fish with tofu stronger? This time, Wang Hui really looked at Fang Yan and valued Fang Yan. There was no longer any hope in his heart. Fang Yan spat out a fishbone, looked at Wang Hui's head and said, "Are you convinced?" Wang Hui stared at Fang Yan with a strange look and said, "You guys. Which sect are you from?" "My family and Master Kai Quan." Fang Yan waved his hand and said, "Don't try to claim relationships. Even if there is a relationship, I will pretend that I don't know you." Fang Yan looked at the heroes and said, "This is the last one. Which one of you wants to fight?" Fang Yingying straightened his belly and said, "Junior martial uncle, let me do it. I'm fat, let me exercise and shake my fat." "Then you do it," Fang Yan said indifferently. There was no need to argue or hesitate over such a small matter. So, under the envious gaze of Fang Haohen, Fang Yingying stood in front of Wang Hui valiantly. Fang Yingying looked back at the table and said, "Let's hurry up. I'm in a hurry to eat." Wang Hui was hurt again. "This is a fight, okay? This is a duel, okay? Even if you want to hit me, you should respect me, okay?" Fang Yingying moved. His body rushed straight to Wang Hui, as if he wanted to knock him down with his more than 180 kilograms of fat. Wang Hui's eyes were fierce. He gathered his strength and hit Fang Yingying's head with the fishbone in his hand. Fang Yingying's head was big and fat, so he was the perfect target. Whoosh! When Fang Yingxiong was about to get close to Wang Hui, he suddenly landed on one foot and turned 180 degrees. Can you imagine the scene of a chubby man dancing Little Swan on one foot? Yes, that was what Fang Yingying did. With a quick but definitely not beautiful turn, he easily dodged Wang Hui's fist attack and jumped to Wang Hui's side. Wang Hui quickly turned around and struck Fang Yingying's chin with an uppercut. In his opinion, his reaction could already be described as lightning fast. However, he was still a step too late. Halfway through his turn, Fang Yingxiong ruthlessly punched him in the ribs on his left side. Absolute speed suppression. In the face of Fang Yingying's double speed, Wang Hui was completely useless. He only felt his ribs go numb in an instant, followed by a tearing pain. As Wang Hui's body fell to the left, big fatso Fang Yingying jumped up and kicked him in the waist. At this time, the difference in speed between the two was even more obvious. Wang Hui only did a simple uppercut, but Fang Yingying had already done several moves in a row. Clang! Wang Hui's fallen body smashed a three-legged stool. The stool went under the table and slammed into the wall. Humph! Only then did Wang Hui cry out in pain. His head hit the chair and the skin broke. Blood seeped out and quickly soaked his short hair red. Fang Yingying pulled Wang Hui's leg and dragged his body away from the table. Then, he sat back in his original position and shouted, "Fang Haohen, eat slowly. You've eaten all the fish." Everyone would have more or less the desire to destroy in their heart. Sometimes, they would inexplicably want to smash everything in front of them. Because of the arrival of the heroes, Fang Yan was in a bad mood today. However, after Wang Hui's torment, he felt that his good mood was gradually recovering. Thank Wang Hui, thank those strangers who are willing to bring you happiness. Fang Yan helped Fang Yingying pick up a piece of fish and said, eat slowly. If there's not enough food, we'll order more. Fang Yingying nodded repeatedly and said, thank you, junior martial uncle. Su Bin stood in the corner of the box, in a trance. Until now, he had not been able to fully wake up. When the two sides fought, Su Bin was anxious and afraid. He was anxious because if they smashed the cups, plates, tables, chairs, and so on, how much damage would it be? He was afraid that if they accidentally hit him, wouldn't that be too unlucky for him? However, the battle ended just like that. The scene of heroes fighting wildly in his imagination did not appear. The scene of demons dancing wildly in his imagination did not appear. The scene of you throwing plates and I holding chairs and you chasing each other, you calling me son and I calling you great-grandson also did not appear in his imagination. The side with fewer people rushed into the side with more people. After a series of punches and kicks, the side with more people all fell to the ground and died. It was like a tiger rushing into a flock of sheep, like a harvester driving into a cornfield. It was like crushing dry weeds and smashing rotten wood. It's not good at all. Su Bin thought in his heart. Su Bin looked at the students who were lying on the ground and howling. After hesitating for a while, he still braced himself and walked in front of Fang Yan. He said, sorry to disturb you. Big brother, these people have also been beaten up. Should we send them to the hospital? It would not be good if their vital organs were hurt. Fang Yan raised his head and glanced at Su Bin. He said, it makes sense. Give me another bowl of fish with tofu. Ah. Fish with tofu. Yes. Give me another bowl of fish with tofu, Fang Yan said with certainty. Su Bin nodded and said, I'll add it now. I'll add it now. He carefully passed through the many bodies on the floor of the private room, trying his best not to step on these martial arts school students. Don't look at them lying on the ground now. Usually, they were the ones who made others lie on the ground. Su Bin came in again. He looked at Fang Yan with an apologetic smile and said, Big brother, the fish with tofu has been added. What do you think of these students? They are hostages, Fang Yan said. What did you say? Su Bin jumped in fright. Not only did these three guys beat people, but they also wanted to kidnap them. But how could there be a reason to kidnap a group of people? Even if they were kidnapped, there was no way to take them away, right? You heard it just now. They went to get reinforcements, Fang Yan said. That's right. Su Bin was anxious. Brother, I say you guys should hurry up and leave. The students of glory are very fierce. If they surround you, go where? Fang Yan said with a smile. I work here at Rosefinch Secondary. Where can I go? You are a student of Rosefinch. You don't look like a teacher. Su Bin asked doubtfully. There was one more sentence that he didn't dare to say. Fang Yan didn't look like a teacher either. He looked too young. I'm a teacher. A language teacher, Fang Yan said with a smile. I'm Fang Yan. I'm very famous in the school. You'll know once you ask around. Oh. I'll ask around later, Su Bin said fawningly. But I don't like you, Fang Yan said. You just invited my friend out to perform, Fang Yan pointed at Fang Haohan and said, he can indeed eat glass. But do you think his kung fu is used for performance? No. Su Bin shook his head quickly. Fang Yan glanced at Wang Hui, who was lying on the ground, and said, didn't you want to see a performance? Are you satisfied with this performance? Wang Hui's eyes were fierce, but he didn't dare to fight back on the spot. He knew that he was screwed today. His kung fu wasn't on the same level as these three people. This is martial arts. Fong Yan suddenly raised his voice. Fong Yingying and Fong Haohan, who were burying their heads in food, were shocked. The students of Glory who were lying on the ground moaning or pretending to moan also trembled. Is martial arts for you to drink and liven things up? Everyone was silent. Fong Yan pushed his chair away and stood up. He walked in front of Wang Hui, looked at him and said, bullying businessmen, extorting students, doing these dirty things all day. Is this the ultimate purpose of your kung fu? Do you have the pride and dignity of a martial artist? Do you have the martial art moral training and a little bit of shame? When your body is strong, your brain is atrophied. Don't you need face? Do you believe that I won't cripple your kung fu? Wang Hui and the others looked at Fong Yan in shock. This guy could cripple people's kung fu. Just like the peerless masters in TV and movies. Even Fong Yingying and Fong Haohan looked at Fong Yan with curiosity, as if they had discovered a new continent. Fong Yan smiled awkwardly and said, I accidentally said it. I often see this sentence on TV and wanted to try it. If I break your hands and feet, do you think you'll still have kung fu? Everyone was shocked. So what he meant by crippling people's kung fu was breaking people's hands and feet. It was too cruel and not advanced. There's always someone stronger than you, and there's always someone stronger than you. You think you're very good at fighting, but what if you meet people like us who are even better at fighting? You beat people down, and we beat you down. Don't you feel humiliated? Don't you feel uncomfortable? I don't care if you feel humiliated or not. Anyway, I can't feel it, Fong Yan said. I've never been defeated by anyone before. Pfft, Fong Yingying and Fong Haohan spat out the fish in their mouths at the same time. Seeing Fong Yan's murderous gaze directed at him, Fong Yingying hurriedly shouted, water. Give me water. It's so spicy. This fish is too spicy. Fong Haohan didn't like to talk, but his brain's reaction speed wasn't slow. He picked up the teacup in front of him and gulped it down. I ate a chili, Fong Haohan said after finishing the water in the teacup in one gulp. At this moment, a commotion came from outside the private room. Oh my God, so many students from Glory Martial School, they're running over here. Glory Martial School is going to beat people up. There's going to be a good show to watch. Su Bin ran over to open the window of the private room and saw a dense crowd of Glory Martial School students surrounding his little restaurant. Something big is going to happen. Su Bin was anxious. Chapter 103. Something big was about to happen. Just as Wang Hui had said, the students of the martial arts school were very united. It was the peak time for meals, and most of the students gathered at the school cafeteria or the restaurant at the entrance. Hearing that a classmate from their school had been beaten up in a restaurant, countless Glory Martial Arts School students swarmed over from all directions. Chu Xiangqing. This little restaurant, which was originally unknown, had suddenly become the focus of tonight's Tianfu Road. Who hadn't put brotherhood first? Who hadn't been hot-blooded in their youth? More and more Glory Martial Arts School students gathered at the entrance of Chu Xiangqing's restaurant, attracting even more onlookers. Glory Martial Arts School's disciplinary team and Rosefinch secondary security team were all alarmed. Rosefinch secondary security team tried their best to expel the students from their school, not letting them get involved in this unprovoked war. When Glory Martial Arts School's disciplinary team heard that a student from their school had been beaten up by an unknown person, they immediately cursed and became a member of the revenge group, threatening to boil the person alive and burn his bones to ashes. Coach, it's that one. Wang Hui and the others are still being detained. The four-eyed guy who ran out to report the news pointed to the window upstairs near the street and said to Coach Zhang Chen beside him. Zhang Chen had been a three-time MMA champion in Huaqing. After retiring, he came to help out at the martial arts school founded by his friend. Because of his strength and loyalty, he had a lot of prestige in Glory Martial Arts School. Sometimes, even the principal and vice principals of Glory Martial Arts School couldn't solve a problem. As long as they pushed him out, they would get a satisfactory answer. Zhang Chen had a bad habit, and that was drinking. Every time he drank, he would get drunk. Because of drinking, he would miss a lot of things. Therefore, Zhang Chen, who had worked at Glory Martial Arts School for nearly 10 years, was still a MMA coach. Of course, he had been a trainee, then a senior, and now an ace. It could be considered a small upgrade. It was also because of Zhang Chen's appearance that Glory Martial Arts School was able to gather so many people in such a short time. Zhang Chen hiccuped, squinted his eyes, and looked at the window upstairs, asking, "How many people?" "3," the four-eyed guy replied. "Very troublesome." "Quite powerful." Four-eyed guy felt that it was necessary for him to speak more clearly. Otherwise, it would be his responsibility if someone on their side suffered a loss. Only 2 people took action, and Wang Hui and the others were all taken down. Zhang Chen became spirited and said with a smile, "Interesting. I didn't expect that there would be a few powerful dragons in our little pond. Shout, tell them to come down. Let's spar with him." Hence, the students of Glory Martial School started to shout down from downstairs. "The one who hit me upstairs, come down quickly, come down and fight 300 rounds with me. Don't be a coward. If we don't go down now, we're going to charge up and attack even more heavily. I told you to go down. What should we do now? I'm afraid they won't give up." Hearing the shouts from downstairs, Su Bin's face was full of fear, and he anxiously paced around in the private room. Wang Hui, who was lying on the ground, and his companions beside him looked at each other. Everyone's eyes were filled with ridicule and joy at the prospect of revenge. They're going to be out of luck. They communicated with their eyes. They're going too far, Fang Yan said as he stood by the window and looked at the foul-mouthed martial arts school students. They're going too far, Fang Yingying said in agreement. When has our Fang family been bullied so pathetically before? When has our Fang family, the descendant of Taiji, ever been pointed at and scolded like this? We want glory, we want to fight, we definitely can't be cowards. Yes, that's right. Fang Yingying and Fang Haohen nodded repeatedly. We can't just let this matter go like this, Fang Yan said. We definitely can't. Fang Yingying and Fang Haohen looked agitated. Fang Yan glanced down the window again, his eyes fierce, and said coldly, "Call the police." Okay. Fang Yingying agreed and nimbly took out his phone from his pocket. The two of them cooperated very well, and there was no pause in between. Su Bin originally wanted to persuade Fang Yan to turn a big problem into a small one. He wanted him to go out and apologize, say some soft words, pay for the medical fees of the students, and set up a few tables of food and wine, so that he wouldn't have to suffer. When he heard Fang Yan say something about the Fang family and the descendant of Taiji, he cursed in his heart. It seemed that a fierce battle was inevitable today, and things were developing towards an uncontrollable situation. But why did he call the police? Wasn't that what he was trying to say to persuade them? Say it yourself and make me, the mediator, look stupid and incompetent, okay? Su Bin wanted to confirm if he had heard wrong, but Fang Yingying had already taken out his phone and started to call the police. Comrade police, come and save us. My friends and I are eating in a restaurant, and we're surrounded by hooligans. How many people? There are hundreds of them. They've surrounded the entire restaurant. It's opposite Rosefinch Secondary, and it's not good for something like this to happen at the school's entrance. Yes, they're shouting that they're going to charge in, and we're trying our best to block the door and not let them in. Ah. Fong Ying finally left a lingering "ah" that would leave people with infinite imagination, and hung up the phone decisively. Bang! The door of the private room was kicked open again. A group of fully armed policemen barged into the private room and shouted loudly, squat down, all of you, squat down with your hands on your head." Fong Yen immediately squatted down with his hands raised high. Fong Ying and Fong Haohan followed suit and squatted down beside Fong Yen. Before Su Bin could react, he was pressed to the ground by a policeman, and half of his face was on the ground. What happened? What's wrong with these people? A middle-aged policeman pointed at Wang Hui and the others lying on the ground and asked. "Police comrade, you've arrested the wrong person, Fong Ying said with a smile. "We're the victims. We're all victims. You're the victim." The middle-aged policeman's eyes were full of hostility as he looked at the little fatso. "You're the victim, what are they?" "They're the perpetrators," Fong Ying said as a matter of fact. "They rushed into the private room and wanted to beat people, but we intercepted them." "Beat who?" "Me," Fong Ying said. He pointed at Fong Yen and Fong Haohan and said, "They wanted to beat them." The middle-aged policeman sneered and said, "Not only did you successfully intercept them, but you also beat them up, right?" "Yes, that's it," Fong Ying nodded and said. He thought that the quality of the police nowadays was still very high. Although they had just arrived at the scene, they had already seen the ins and outs of the matter. "Paw!" The middle-aged policeman slapped the table and shouted angrily, "Do you think this is a game? They had so many people to beat you, but in the end, they were beaten to this state." "That's the truth," Fong Yen said. "They came over and wanted to beat people, but we successfully defended them." After they lost, their classmates surrounded the restaurant. They were all students from Glory Martial School. Fong Yen had a general understanding of Glory Martial School, but he knew that to be able to rush over so quickly after they called the police, it was obvious that the police station wasn't far from here. They should have a clearer understanding of Glory Martial School. Hearing Fong Yan's words, the middle-aged policeman's face calmed down a little. "I can't just listen to what you say. We will investigate this matter clearly. We still have evidence," Fong Yen said. He pointed at Fong Ying and said, "It was my friend who called the police. You can check the number of the police at the manual desk." The middle-aged policeman nodded to a young policeman beside him, and that policeman immediately made a phone call to inquire. Very quickly, the number of the police was reported back by the manual desk. As soon as they made another call, the phone in Fong Ying's pocket rang. "I have other evidence," Fong Yen said. He took out his phone from his pocket and played the video. He pointed at the scene of Glory Martial School students standing downstairs and shouting crazily, and said, Look. Are these students proper? How can they treat a teacher like this? Even if I'm not a teacher, they can't scold me like this, right? If I had impulsively run down, wouldn't someone have died tonight? From the standpoint of a teacher, we naturally want to protect our students from any harm. However, we can't just leave them be. Otherwise, these students. Wouldn't that increase your workload in the future? Right? I can't watch helplessly as my students fall to such a state. You're a teacher. The middle-aged policeman looked at Fong Yen and asked. Yes. My name is Fong Yen, I'm a language teacher at Rosefinch Secondary, Fong Yen said. He knew that most of the time, the outside world still had a good impression of the profession of a teacher. The middle-aged policeman was overjoyed. He pointed at Fong Yen and said with a smile, "Your teacher Fong Yen." "Teacher Fong Yen from class 9. You know me?" Fong Yen asked curiously. "Chow Lei, class 9 student. You know Mr. Fong, right?" Fong Yen carefully sized up the middle-aged policeman in front of him. He saw that this person's facial features were somewhat similar to Qiao Lei's. He said happily, "You're Qiao Lei's father." Qiao Zhenye smiled awkwardly and said, "I'm Qiao Lei's uncle. His parents work abroad and rarely come back. Qiao Lei lives at my house. He often tells me about Mr. Fang's heroic deeds. These guys actually bullied Mr. Fang. They're really looking for death." "I see," Fang Yan said with a smile. Tonight's incident, Qiao Zhenye glanced at Wang Hui and the others and said, "Students of Glory Martial Arts School treat fighting as their daily routine. It's not the first time we've dealt with this kind of thing. Mr. Fang, don't worry. Leave this matter to us. You've worked hard," Fang Yan said gratefully. Wang Hui and his classmates were taken away by the police. At the same time, Glory Martial Arts School's coach, Zhang Qin, who gathered the crowd to cause trouble, was also taken away. Because those students were brought here by him, they were also loudly cursing at his request. Glory Martial Arts School's students were like a group of dragons without a leader. Each of them stood there stupidly, not knowing how to deal with the situation in front of them. Fang Yan came out of the small restaurant and walked straight towards the square formation of Glory Martial Arts School students. The students persisted for a bit, but soon spontaneously dispersed and opened up a path. Fang Yan walked through the crowd. This scene was like Glory Martial Arts School students lining the street to welcome the triumphant return of a hero. Fang Yan waved his hand and shouted, "Everyone go back, go back. The most important thing for students is to study well." Chapter 104. Police Station. Tianhe Branch Office. There was a cigarette between his fingers. The smoke emitted quickly filled the small interrogation room with smoke. There was a pile of extinguished cigarette butts in the ashtray. Zhang Chen, who rarely smoked, was especially addicted to cigarettes today. He felt that there was a stuffiness in his chest that he couldn't vent. Qiao Zhenye couldn't take it anymore. He walked over to open the window of the interrogation room to get some fresh air. "Captain Qiao, what's the meaning of this? We didn't provoke anyone. A student is going to celebrate his birthday. We were just going to have a birthday drink. Is this also illegal?" "Have a birthday drink?" Qiao Zhenye sneered. "Coach Zhang, this isn't the first time we've dealt with each other. Some things are better to talk about openly. If you were really going to drink a student's birthday drink, why would I bring you here? Do I have nothing better to do? Let me ask you, what's going on with the Glory students in the private room? What's going on with so many Glory students surrounding the entrance of the restaurant? Even charging you for disturbing public order is considered a light punishment. A student from Glory Martial Arts School was beaten up in the restaurant's private room. I wanted to ask Captain Qiao what's going on. You're a police officer. Shouldn't you be the one to investigate this? As for the students at the entrance of the restaurant, they just happened to bump into each other. They just stood at the entrance for a while. How big of a deal could it be? See for yourself." Qiao Zhenye handed over his phone. Zhang Chen took the phone and saw that there was a video on the screen. He pressed the play button on the video. Then, he and his students stood at the entrance of the restaurant, insulting and attacking the people in the private room, shouting for them to come down and get beaten up. The sound and image were clearly displayed in front of him. "Paw." Zhang Chen slammed the phone on the table and shouted angrily, "Too treacherous. They actually dared to secretly record a video. This is a means of self-protection. Why can't they record a video?" Qiao Zhenye said sarcastically. He picked up his cell phone from the table and said, "My wife bought this cell phone for me. If I break it, you have to compensate me." Zhang Chen sighed and said, "Senior Marshal brother, I was tricked this time. You have to think of a way to help me." "Help you?" Qiao Zhenye sneered. The witness and material evidence are all here. If we don't handle this fairly, won't they have anything to say? Besides, I can't do something like siding with your glorious martial school. Don't you know the morals of your glorious martial school students? Xiao Zhenye and Zhang Qin were from the same sect, but the paths they took were completely different. Zhang Chen was more talented than Xiao Zhenye in Sanda boxing. After winning several championships in Sanda, he went to Glory Martial Arts School to be a coach. On the other hand, Xiao Zhenye quit early and relied on his own efforts to become a police officer. After many years of hard work, he had become the squadron leader of the Tianhe police station. His rank wasn't too high, but he had a lot of power. Zhang Chen frowned and said, "What's the background of the other party? You didn't even know who they were, and you went to beat them up with so many people." Xiao Zhenye said, suppressing his anger. "I drank a lot at that time." Someone ran over and said that a student from the martial arts school was beaten up. I slammed the table and yelled for my brothers to come with me to get back at them. In the end, so many people came, Zhang Chen said with some regret. "You also know my temper. It's easy to mess things up when I drink too much. You know that it's easy to mess things up when you drink too much, yet you don't quit drinking." Zhang Chen smiled bitterly. He touched his ribs and said, "I can't. It hurts here." The knife wound back then was too vicious. Xiao Zhenye knew about Zhang Chen's past. He sighed softly and said, "The person in the private room is Fang Yan, a teacher at Rosefinch Secondary." Fang Yan. Zhang Chen thought about it a few times and said, "This name sounds familiar. I should have heard of it somewhere." "You must have heard of it," Xiao Zhenye said with absolute certainty. "A few days ago, a Japanese inspection group came to Rosefinch Secondary. One of the Japanese students cheated in a fencing competition and angered Mr. Fang. He jumped up and sent the person flying. My nephew told me dozens of times. I've heard of his name. Your Glory and Rosefinch are so close. How could you not have heard of him?" Zhang Chen suddenly understood and said, "So it's him. It's rumored that he's amazing. I was going to go and challenge him." "What did you say?" Xiao Zhenye was furious. "It's just a spar," Zhang Chen said indifferently. "You know how I am. I have good wine and a good opponent. If I don't enjoy myself, it'll be worse than killing me. What if he doesn't want to compete with you? Then I'll force him to compete with me." Zhang Chen. "Brother, you can't persuade me on this. Fang Yan originally wanted to live with a beauty, but now a hero came." Lu Chaoga's courtyard had 2 bedrooms. In order to repay Lu Chaoga's selfless help, Fang Yan once proposed to each live in a room with her. Lu Chaoga refused, but the hero readily agreed. The hero's residence was settled, but Fang Yan had a new problem to worry about. What should he do in the future? He had to find a job for them. Otherwise, how could his salary be enough to support the expenses of the 3 of them if they were to sit idle and eat? Besides, his drunkard senior brother had asked the heroes and warriors to look for him because he wanted the 2 of them to gain experience in society. How could they gain experience? It was obviously impossible for them to perform on the streets and eat glass as a street performer. He could ask them to be security guards for Rosefinch, but the school wasn't hiring. Fang Yan thought about it, but he still couldn't think of a feasible way. Thus, he found his phone and dialed Lu Xiaoga's number. Lu Xiaoga's voice was a little hoarse. He didn't know if it was a throat problem or a cold. "What's the matter?" Lu Xiaoga asked. "Principal Lu, did I disturb your rest?" Fang Yan asked with a smile. "Tell me." "Here's the thing. I have 2 friends coming from their hometown to find me. I want to find a job for them. But you know, I'm not familiar with watching. How can I find a job for them?" So, I want to ask Principal Lu for help. You have a lot of connections. As long as you're willing, you can arrange a job for them with just a word. Lu Chaoge was silent. Principal Lu, this is a small matter that can't be any more trivial. You can take care of it when you have time. Don't waste too much energy on it. You're a woman who can do great things. It's getting late. Principal Lu, rest early. Don't stay up late. Take care of your health, Fang Yan said sincerely, fulfilling a subordinate's concern and care for his superior's health. After hanging up the phone, Fang Yan closed his eyes happily. When you encounter a problem you can't solve, send it to the people who can. Early morning. The hero and the hero were practicing the cross plum blossom steps in the yard. Fang Yan was trimming the plants inside and outside the house. This was one of the 3 conditions that Lu Chaoge put forward when she borrowed the house from him. He couldn't let this woman have an excuse to take back the house. The 3 of them were covered in hot sweat. After returning to their rooms and taking a shower, Fang Yan poured the medicinal concoction that he had brewed on the stove into a thermos cup. He waved at the heroes and warriors and said, "Let's go and have breakfast." So, the hero and the hero quickly followed. They were already hungry. After eating breakfast in the school cafeteria, the hero and the hero went back to practice. Fang Yan walked to the administrative building with the thermos cup. At the door of Lu Chaoge's office, Fang Yan took the initiative to greet the beautiful secretary, Xiao Meng. "Good morning, Xiao Meng." "Good morning, Mr. Fang." Xiao Meng saw the thermos cup in Fang Yan's hand and asked with a smile, "Is this a breakfast of love for me?" Fang Yan shook his head and asked, "Has Headmaster Lu come to work yet?" "I just came in." Xiao Meng looked at Fang Yan and asked with a surprised face, "Are you going to give Headmaster Lu breakfast?" Headmaster Lu Chaoge was the famous ice queen of the school. She had never been close to any young man. Did Fang Yan want to pursue Headmaster Lu? Wasn't this guy's guts a little too fat? Fang Yan waved his hand and said, "What does a child know?" Fang Yan didn't care what Xiao Meng was thinking. He went over and knocked on the door of Lu Chaoge's office. "Come in, please." Lu Chaoge's voice came out. Her voice was hoarse, not as concise and crisp as usual. When Fang Yan pushed the door and entered, Lu Chaoge was standing in the corner and trimming a potted plant. Fang Yan said with a smile, "Headmaster Lu really loves flowers. Among the people I know, you are the first." Lu Chaoge was wearing a black professional suit. Inside the tailored uniform was a snow-white vest. The outer coat was serious, and the inner lining was relaxed. It didn't look old-fashioned or too casual. Lu Chaoge was a natural clothes rack. Of course, the key was that she had a good-looking face. A good-looking person would look good in any clothes. The scissors in Lu Chaoge's hand stopped. She turned to look at Fang Yan and asked, "What's the matter?" "Headmaster Lu, I called you last night and heard something wrong with your voice. I chose a few Chinese herbs and made a pot of herbal tea for you. This tea can cure the early cold, moisturize the heart and lungs, and protect the throat. Try it. If the effect is good, I'll make a few more pots for you." Headmaster Lu stared at Fang Yan calmly and didn't speak. Fang Yan handed over the teacup and said, "Headmaster Lu, don't worry. I didn't make medicine for you to ask you to do something for me. I just respect your character and thank you for your care for me all the time." Lu Chaoge took the thermos and looked at Fang Yan and said, "Thank you for your medicine. I can't do it for you." Chapter 105. The wicked will be tortured by the wicked, and the bitch will not let him take advantage of anything. This was the only way that Lu Chaoge could think of to deal with people like Fang Yan. Looking at Fang Yan's stunned expression, Lu Chaoge asked, "Is there anything else?" No. Fong Yen said. Nothing. I'm very busy. Lu Chaoge waved the scissors in her hand and gave a euphemistic order for him to leave. Oh, yes, Principal Lu is very busy, and I happen to have classes in the first 2 periods. Fong Yen only then reacted. I still have to go to class with the students, so I won't bother Principal Lu. He looked at the thermos cup in Lu Chaoge's hand and said, Principal Lu, you must drink this medicinal tea while it's hot, don't forget. I'll remember, Lu Chaoge said expressionlessly. Then I'm really leaving. Fong Yen smiled shyly and turned to walk out of Lu Chaoge's office. When Xiaoming saw Fong Yen come out, her first reaction was to see if his hands were empty. When she found that the thermos cup in Fong Yan's hand had disappeared, her eyes widened. She asked in surprise, Fong Yen, Principal Lu, Fong Yen made a shushing gesture to her and whispered, It's good that you know, don't say it. Xiaoming nodded and looked at Fong Yen with a complicated expression. Originally, she had some small admiration and intentions for Fong Yen. She thought that with more and more contact, they would slowly become an enviable couple. Unexpectedly, Fong Yan's target turned out to be her boss and idol, Principal Lu Chaoge. Why did Principal Lu accept his breakfast of love? She had never accepted gifts from men. In the past, when someone sent her expensive flowers or potted plants, she directly handed them to the office to deal with. She looked at Fong Yan's receding figure and felt a little sour in her heart. It was as if he had just eaten an unripe green date. Lu Chaoge didn't know what the 2 young men and women were thinking. She put the thermos cup that Fong Yen had brought over on the windowsill, and then continued to trim the welcome pine with scissors. In fact, Lu Chaoge didn't like the welcome pine tree because there were too many people there. It had almost become a standard feature of a company or business owner's office. No matter how elegant an object was, as long as many people owned it, it would become vulgar. For example, RMB. Everyone was playing with it, and everyone liked it. However, everyone felt that it was too tacky to talk about money. But if you have a big carat diamond or a rare gem in your hand, then no matter how noble the occasion is, it will not be demeaning to speak of it or show it. It will only add to your endless elegance. However, this welcome pine tree was very different from other welcome pine trees. The welcome pine tree, which was commonly seen in the market, would try to stretch out its branches and leaves, like people stretching out their arms to welcome guests from afar. When Lu Chaoge found this welcome pine tree in the flower market, it was abandoned in the corner by its owner. The reason why it was abandoned was that it didn't have branches to extend out to welcome guests. Who would buy a welcome pine tree that didn't want to welcome guests? However, Lu Chaoge fell in love with it at first sight. She felt that this welcome pine tree, which didn't look luxuriant and too straight without branches, looked like a person. Fong Yen. In the Taekwondo dojo, Fong Yen was infuriated by Chiba Haomu and suddenly jumped out to beat him up. After beating him up, he stood alone in the center of the dojo with a thin body and a cold expression. Didn't he look exactly like this welcoming pine? The welcome pine tree she trimmed was not willing to extend its arms and bow to welcome guests. Who had Fong Yen ever welcomed? 10 minutes later, Lu Chaoge put down the scissors and carefully looked at the work she had just finished. There were still some flaws, but it was time to go to work. She liked flowers and potted plants, but she would never use her working time to do these things. Most of the time, she used the time before work or during her break. Lu Chaoge put the scissors on the windowsill and went to the bathroom to wash her hands. Then she sat on the chair and began to work. Every morning when she worked, she would first deal with the emails from the day before. This was a habit she had developed when she worked in the United States. Her throat was extremely itchy, so she immediately covered her mouth with a tissue and coughed. She coughed so hard that it seemed like her lungs would never stop. Her face turned purple, and she was worried that she would vomit her lungs out if she opened her mouth. She took out some cough water from her bag and was about to spray it into her mouth, but she stopped just in time when she was about to press it. Her eyes turned to the purple thermos on the windowsill again. It stood there quietly, not at all as ostentatious and strange as its owner. After hesitating for a while, Lu Chaoge walked over, picked up the thermos, and unscrewed the cap. It wasn't like what she had imagined, where she could smell an unpleasant herbal smell when she opened the lid. Not only was it not unpleasant, but there was a fragrance of herbs. The medicine was not the black color she was familiar with, but a translucent orange-yellow color. It was like the first brew of ripe pu, or tea soup. Is this medicine or tea? Lu Chaoge thought in her heart. The color was tempting, and the fragrance assailed her nostrils. Lu Chaoge couldn't help but take a sip. A warm and cool feeling went straight into her mouth, and before she could savor it carefully, it slipped down her throat. The thick phlegm deep in her throat that she couldn't cough out came into contact with the tea soup, and she immediately surrendered and became a deserter. The burning and itchy feeling quickly disappeared. Lu Chaoge was overjoyed and drank the whole cup of tea in one gulp. Her mouth was watering, and she felt refreshed. It actually gave her the urge to have another bowl. The high fever and cough caused by the inflammation of her throat had been tormenting her for 2 days and 2 nights. Last night, when Fang Yan called her, she was coughing so hard that she couldn't fall asleep. She took a lot of anti-inflammatory drugs, and although it was getting better, she didn't fully recover. Fang Yan's tea soup was simply her life-saving elixir. She really didn't want to suffer like this anymore. Not only was her body uncomfortable, but it also affected the progress of her work. After cleaning the thermos, she called the secretary Xiao Meng in and said to Xiao Meng, "Give the thermos to Mr. Fang Yan and ask him to send another cup tomorrow morning." "Okay, principal." Xiao Meng nodded and quickly took the thermos. When leaving Lu Chaoge's office, she couldn't help but sneak a glance at Lu Chaoge. There was an irrepressible joy and happiness on her face. Principal Lu is in love. Xiao Meng thought in her heart. When Zhang Chen was teaching the students how to fight, someone shouted at the door of the classroom, "Coach Zhang, someone is looking for you." Zhang Chen looked back and said to the students, "You are free to practice. Don't be lazy. If I see anyone being lazy, you are not allowed to eat tonight. Prepare to run 50 laps on the field." In brilliant martial arts school, Zhang Chen was famous for being strict with the students. Everyone promised that they wouldn't be lazy. When Zhang Chen walked out of the classroom, he found that 3 young people wanted to see him. To be more precise, 3 young Rosefinch students wanted to see him. Although they weren't wearing Rosefinch's school jacket, they were wearing the school's pants. Zhang Chen looked at them vigilantly and asked, "Who are you? Why are you looking for me?" Could it be that he had a conflict with Fang Yan last night, and today his students came to take revenge for their teacher? The problem was, these 3 students, from their crooked posture, he could see that their lower bodies weren't stable. He could probably knock them all down in 10 seconds. These kinds of people wanted to help his teacher get back at him. However, what Zhang Chen didn't understand was that last night, it was clearly their brilliant martial arts school that was at a disadvantage. Why would Rosefinch be dissatisfied? "Are you teacher Zhang Chen?" Zheng Guodong asked with a smile, a fawning look on his face. "Who are you?" Zhang Chen asked. "I'm Zheng Guodong said. "My dad is Zheng Tiancheng, Rosefinch Secondary School Board member." Zheng Guodong knew that if he only said his name, Zhang Chen probably wouldn't put him in his eyes at all. However, if he said his father's name, Zhang Chen couldn't help but look at him in a different light. He had used this move countless times, and it worked every time. Zheng Guodong pointed at Li Yang and Chen Tao and said, "They're my friends. Why are you looking for me?" Zhang Chen was even more confused. Why was Xing Tianchang's son looking for him? To recruit him as a bodyguard. We heard about what happened last night. Zheng Guodong said. Zhang Chen frowned and said, What? You want to take revenge for your teacher? I'm afraid the three of you aren't qualified, right? Teacher Zhang, you misunderstood, Zheng Guodong explained with a smile. Seeing that Zheng Guodong was still brooding over what happened last night, he knew that they were right to come. We're very dissatisfied with some of Fang Yan's practices in the school. This guy is a beast in human clothing. On the surface, he says one thing, but in the dark, he does another. The teachers and students in the school don't like him. We think, if Teacher Zhang wants to find Fang Yan to compare notes, we can help to provide some convenience. If Teacher Zhang needs, we can even trick him to come out to the place you specify. Zhang Chen's eyes narrowed and said, You mean, you want me to challenge Fang Yan and teach him a lesson? Is that right? You're his students. Yes. We're all students of Class 9. But, we won't admit that we're his students. Li Yang said angrily. We won't admit that he's our teacher. He doesn't deserve it. Isn't the teacher-student relationship the best? Zhang Chen grinned. It's not that he doesn't deserve it, it's that you don't deserve it. Zheng Guodong was dumbfounded. This was different from what they had imagined. Chapter 106. It shouldn't be like this, the plot shouldn't be like this. This morning, when Zheng Guodong, Li Yang, and Chen Tao heard about the conflict between Fang Yan and the students of Glory Martial Arts School while eating in Chu Xiangqing, and how the ace coach of Glory Martial Arts School, Zhang Qin, brought many students to surround the restaurant, and how the police came out to take the troublemakers away, they immediately made detailed and accurate fantasies and deductions about the subsequent development of this matter. When Glory Martial Arts School's coach Zhang Qin was suppressing a bellyful of anger and trying to take revenge on Fang Yan, they appeared like a timely rain and offered their huge selfless help. Plus, they had a common enemy, Fang Yan, so both sides hit it off and had a good chat. Coach Zhang Qin warmly pulled their hands and wanted to keep them for lunch, but they refused with the reason that they had another place to go to at noon. But Zhang Chen was a rough person who practiced martial arts, saying that if they didn't accept his invitation, it would be not giving him face. For the sake of the same ideal and goal, they reluctantly stayed. During the meal, each person only drank a bottle of beer, not more, to avoid messing things up. Why didn't Zhang Chen act according to the script at all? Teacher Zhang, are you okay? Zheng Guodong asked with a face full of doubt. There was no reason. Why did he suddenly become so fierce to his benefactors? Are you crazy? Zhang Chen said with a cold smile. No wonder people say that the quality of education at Vermilion Bird Academy has been getting worse and worse these past few years. The students that come out are getting worse and worse. Even trash like you can get in. No wonder this school is getting worse and worse. Although the students of our Glory Martial Arts School are a group of rough people who practice martial arts, no one would do something as beastly as inviting others to beat up their own teacher. Are you still human? Cruel and unscrupulous is the description of you guys, right? Teacher Zhang, don't you have enmity with Fang Yan? Why are you speaking up for him? Chen Tao also found it hard to understand. This guy was really stupid. Could it be that he couldn't even tell who was truly good to him? I have no enmity with Fang Yan. Zhang Qin shouted angrily. We just had some conflicts. He made me lose face, so I'll go to his door to get back at him. But I will go there openly and fight with him fair and square. I don't need the help of you bastards whose conscience has been eaten by dogs. Who the hell are you? Do you think that everyone in the world is as shameless as you? Zhang Chen, I'm warning you. Zheng Guodong pointed at Zhang Chen and cursed. Bang! Zhang Chen stretched out his hand at lightning speed and grabbed the finger that Jing Guodong was pointing at his nose. Do you believe that I won't break your bones? Zhang Chen glared at him and said angrily. Jing Guodong only felt that the finger that Zhang Chen grabbed was getting tighter and tighter. It was burning with pain, as if it was about to be squeezed off. Seeing Zhang Chen's terrifying appearance that looked like he was about to bite someone, Jing Guodong began to feel fear from the bottom of his heart. His face was pale and he said shakily, "Don't help. If you don't want us to help, then forget it. We're just saying." Zhang Chen grabbed Jing Guodong's finger and didn't let go. His sharp eyes stared into Jing Guodong's eyes, as if he was considering whether or not to break his finger. "Hurry and let go of Jing, don't bring trouble to yourself and the school." Li Yang shouted anxiously. "Zhang Chen, if you dare to touch Jing, don't think about continuing in glory. Glory will also be out of luck." Chen Tao also threatened. Zhang Chen forcefully pushed with his palm. Jing Guodong's body couldn't bear the weight and fell on his butt. "Scram!" Zhang Chen roared. He really couldn't beat up an outsider in Glory Martial Arts School. If he did that, he wouldn't be able to continue as an instructor, and Glory Martial Arts School would also have to bear responsibility. The school's principal treated him like a brother, so he couldn't harm his own brother. Li Yang and Chen Tao hurriedly ran over to help Jing Guodong up. Jing Guodong swung his finger that was about to deform and looked at Zhang Chen with a venomous gaze. He brought his 2 followers and ran towards the school gate. "Sick," they scolded from afar. Zhang Chen sneered and said, "You guys are the sick ones. And quite sick." A few martial arts school students ran over and asked, "Instructor, where did those 3 brats come from? They dared to challenge the instructor?" "3 patients," Zhang Chen said with a disdainful expression. "A bunch of spineless weaklings. Junior Martial Uncle, haven't we found a job yet?" Fang Yingying stood behind Fang Yan and asked. "Why don't we let the hero go out and eat glass? He likes to eat it anyway." Fang Yan was busy brewing today's medicinal soup. After hearing Fang Yingying's words, he smiled and said, "Don't be anxious. Today, this medicinal soup will be delivered. Tomorrow, you 2 will have a job." "Really?" Fang Yingying didn't believe him at all. "What does finding a job have to do with delivering medicinal soup?" "Giving gifts," Fang Yan said proudly. "Other people give gifts with good cigarettes, wine, ginseng, and cordyceps, but we just need to give a bowl of medicinal soup. It's simple and cheap, warm and practical. That woman will definitely be moved by me. Once she's happy, you 2 will have a job. Women outside are so gullible." Fang Yingying exclaimed. "Gullible? Why not? Do you think all women are like Yi Ro, as sly as a 1,000-year-old fox, hitting people and hurting people's self-esteem?" Fang Yan got angry at the mention of Yi Ro. He couldn't wait to appear in front of him and get beaten up. No, it's better not to appear in front of him. Women outside are silly and stupid. They believe whatever you say. They're so moved by a little kindness that they cry and laugh, wishing they could repay you with their bodies. If it weren't for Junior Martial Uncle's strong willpower and my unfulfilled dreams and ambitions, I might have been taken by them and lived a peaceful life with a wife and children. The kind of women that you're talking about who are stupid and will believe anything you say, who will be moved to tears and laughter at the same time, wishing to repay you with their bodies. Does that include me?" A cold voice suddenly came from behind him. Fang Yan turned around and saw Lu Chaoga, who was wearing a pair of blue jeans, a white t-shirt, and a black knitted sweater, standing at the door of the kitchen with a sneer on her face. Oh, Fang Yan's expression suddenly changed. "Is the medicine ready?" Lu Chaoga asked. After drinking the medicinal soup sent by Fong Yen for 2 consecutive days, Lu Chaoga's throat inflammation and cough were almost cured. According to Fong Yen, she would be completely cured after drinking it for another 2 days. Besides, the medicine soup could remove some toxins in her body, which was good for her body. However, Fong Yen sent medicine to Lu Chaoga in the early morning for 2 consecutive days, which attracted some criticism in the office of the administration building. There were even rumors that they were in love. Otherwise, what important things did a teacher have to report to the vice principal? Did they have to meet in the office every morning? Lu Chaoga didn't go directly to the office of the administration building today. Instead, she went to the small courtyard that she lent to Fong Yen. She wanted to take away all the medicine before Fong Yen went out. In this way, she could avoid the need for Fong Yen to go to the office to send medicine to her, and eliminate the speculation about their relationship. Unexpectedly, she happened to hear Fong Yan's wise words at the door of the kitchen. Was her behavior so retarded during this period of time? Did she become a heavenly idiot in his eyes? Done. Fong Yen swallowed a mouthful of saliva and nodded. Lu Chaoga handed over the thermos flask in her hand and said, "Give it to me." Fong Yen deftly poured out the medicine in the crock and carefully poured it into the thermos flask. Lu Chaoga took the thermos flask and turned to leave. That. Fong Yen felt that he should explain. No need to explain. Lu Chaoga said without turning her head. All your explanations are just a cover-up. Clang. The wooden door of the small courtyard was closed by Lu Chaoga. Fong Yen walked in front of Fong Yingying and said, "Slap me. Junior martial uncle." Fong Yingying looked at Fong Yen with great shock. Are you all right? Don't you want to beat such a cheap person? Fong Yen asked. Junior martial uncle. I can't do it. I'm used to it. Fong Yen waved at Fong Haohan, who was in the middle of the courtyard. Fong Haohan with a poker face walked in front of Fong Yen in a few steps. How did she get in? Fong Yen asked. She walked in. Fong Haohan answered honestly. I'm asking how she walked in. Fong Yen was angry. He pointed at the door of the courtyard and said, Does she know Qigong or can she walk through walls? Neither. Fong Haohan shook his head with a serious expression. She walked in. You opened the door for her, didn't you? Fong Yen had to make the question clearer. This guy didn't understand the subtext of his words at all. Yes. Fong Haohan nodded. Then why didn't you tell me? You let a strange woman into our courtyard for no reason. Weren't you afraid that she would do something dangerous to us? Fong Haohan thought for a moment and said, She can't beat us. Knock, knock, knock. Someone knocked on the wooden door of the small courtyard. Fong Yen was stunned for a moment and quickly rushed over. He opened the door and said, Principal Lu, listen to my explanation. Baldy, why are you standing at the door sneakily? Baldy felt very wronged and explained, I'm just standing at the door. I'm not sneaky. He took out a paper card that looked like an invitation and handed it over. He said, This is a letter of challenge from someone else. Fong Yen turned around and said, Just say you didn't see me. Chapter 107. Shangqin. Fong Yen looked at the name inscribed on the back of the challenge and asked in surprise, I don't know him, why did he hit me? The corner of Baldy's mouth twitched, and he said, He didn't hit you, he wanted to compete with you. Do you think I'm stupid? Fong Yen sneered. I just had a conflict with Glory Martial School, and now they're sending me a challenge. Don't they just want to beat me up after defeating me? They're doing it for revenge, and they're finding a dignified excuse for it. This kind of hypocritical and cunning villain, I don't even want to fight with him. Baldy thought about it, and it really did seem like it. Mr. Fong really understands human nature, you can predict things like a god. Baldy grinned, revealing 2 rows of neat yellow teeth. If it were me, I would do the same, Fong Yen said. Fong Yen handed the challenge back to Baldy and said, just pretend you didn't see me. No way, no way. Baldy waved his hand to refuse. Zhang Chen came early in the morning, and he's been waiting in front of our security office for an hour. He said if you don't accept the challenge, he won't leave. Fong Yen said indifferently, if he doesn't want to leave, then he won't leave. He can stand for as long as he wants. The land and sunlight are all free. If you're in a good mood, pour him a glass of water. If you're in a bad mood, talk to him more, and waste his saliva. If he's thirsty, he'll naturally go back. He's a living person, standing there all the time, how bad would that be? That's the job of your security office. Just chase him away on the grounds that he's affecting the security office and polluting the eyes of the students. You said the students are scared when they see him. He won't leave, Baldy said with a bitter smile. If it was someone else, we could think of a way to send him away. But if it's Zhang Chen, we really can't do that. Fong Yen looked at Baldy doubtfully and asked, how much do you know about him? Zhang Chen is a brilliant and famous martial arts madman. In the beginning, in order to compete with a Wing Chun master, he followed him for more than a month. When others were eating, he would sit and eat. While others were receiving guests, he stood at the side and listened. Wherever others went, he followed. That expert couldn't stand it anymore. I had no choice but to agree to his request. What was the result? Fong Yen asked. I don't know. Baldy shook his head. They are competing in secret. We don't know the result. There's no news about it. You mean, I have no choice but to accept it? I can't, Baldy said. The glorious martial school is right next to our rosefinch. Zhang Chen will definitely come and follow you every day. Fong Yen was a little interested in Zhang Chen and asked, how is his skill? He can fight very well, Baldy said excitedly. He is the 3-time MMA champion of watching. He is the ace coach of the glorious martial school. Some say he is the #1 expert in watching. Fong Yan's expression changed greatly and said, you better tell him that you didn't find Fong Yan. Mr. Fong, hey, Baldy. Fong Yan looked up and down at Baldy and said with a cold smile, I find that you really want me to accept this match. What? You want to see me get beaten up? Or did Zhang Chen send you to be a lobbyist? If I agree, what benefits will he give you? No, no. Baldy waved his hands repeatedly. Why would I want to see you get beaten up? I mainly want to see you beat someone up. This reason won't convince me, Fong Yen said. Baldy pondered for a moment, then looked at Fong Yen and said, actually, it's not just me who wants you to accept the letter of challenge. My colleagues in the security department all hope that you can accept it. The entire Rosefinch Secondary's teachers and students also hope that you can accept it. Oh. So much higher all of a sudden. To fight for Rosefinch. You also know that although our Rosefinch students have good grades, when it comes to fighting, we are really no match for those martial arts school students. It is also because of this reason that the martial arts school students often come to the Rosefinch student activity area to show off their strength. The students are holding in their anger, and our security department has to deal with the conflicts between these students all day, so we are also holding in our anger. But what can we do even if we hold in our anger? Our fists aren't as hard as theirs, and our fights aren't as fierce as theirs. We can only be bullied by others. Baldy looked at Fong Yen and said, Mr. Fong is skilled in both literature and martial arts. The matter of you beating up Wu Ren swordsmen in order to avenge your students has long been known by everyone in watching. The students of Rosefinch all see you as their guardian angel, and they all feel that as long as you are there, you can protect them. But the students of Brilliant Martial Arts School all think that we are just bragging, saying that Mr. Fong is just a show-off, and that if he met their teachers and students, he would be beaten down in less than 3 moves. Because of this matter, the students of the two schools had many wars of words. This time, the students of Brilliant Martial Arts School will definitely know that Zhang Qin came to our school's entrance to issue a challenge. The students of our school will know very quickly. If they know that you rejected Zhang Chen's letter of challenge, they will definitely be very disappointed. Therefore, this competition concerns Rosefinch's reputation, as well as the morale of the students. We all hope that Mr. Fong can step forward bravely and fight for our honor and dignity. My personal honor doesn't matter much, but since it concerns Rosefinch's honor and dignity, I will not shirk my duty, Fong Yen said with a serious expression. Mr. Fong agreed. Baldy was overjoyed. Fong Yingying, Fong Yen shouted. Here, the short and fat Fong Yingying ran in front of Fong Yen and said, Junior Martial Uncle, you were looking for me. Are you willing to fight for Rosefinch's honor and dignity? Yes, Fong Yingying shouted loudly. But why should I fight for Rosefinch's honor and dignity? I have nothing to do with Rosefinch. Then fight for me, Fong Yen said. He stuffed the letter of challenge in his hand into Fong Yingying's hand and said, You can only win, you can't lose. Fong Yingying and Baldy looked at each other and didn't know what to do. Fong Yan looked worried and said, Principal Lu is angry. What should I do to please her? I'm going to tell her that she's not the kind of woman that I made her out to be. She won't believe me if I tell her that she's not the kind of woman that would cry and laugh at the slightest bit of kindness. But she has never promised to marry me. Mr. Zhang, you should go back first. Baldy has gone to find someone for you. We will inform you when we find him. Yes. You are standing in front of the school gate, and all the students are looking at you. If the school leaders know, we will be scolded again. Zhang Chen was indifferent to Rosefinch's security guard's persuasion. He said, I will not leave until Fong Yen comes out. Mr. Zhang. Hey, Baldy is back, a security guard said, pointing to the wall. Mr. Fong Yen also came out. Fong Yen walked to the school gate with Baldy and the hero. He looked at the big man in rough clothes standing at the gate of the security office and said, We have met. You're the one who's seen me. I've never seen you before. Zhang Chen stared into Fong Yan's eyes. That night, he brought people to block the door of Chu Xiangqing's restaurant. In the end, Fong Yan did not go downstairs. Instead, he stood upstairs and recorded the scene of them shouting and insulting. The police came to take them away. From beginning to end, he did not even have a chance to meet Fong Yen. Was he the one who sent the Japanese swordsman flying? Was he the legendary Tai Chi master? You could not tell from his appearance at all. He was gentle and handsome, thin and tall, and his face was too young. No matter how you looked at him, he did not look like a peerless master. However, Zhang Chen's intuition told him that this was the person he was looking for. He felt danger. His body reacted subconsciously. Fong Yan also recognized Zhang Chen in front of him. It was the man he saw in front of the window surrounded by brilliant students. He said with a smile, So it is you. I even took a photo of you. Zhang Chen felt a pain in his chest, as if he had been stabbed on the spot. He said, Yes. Those photos are still in the police station. You see, you already have a criminal record in the police station. You still want to hit me. Isn't it too risky? Fong Yan said with a smile. He had handed the video to the police to prevent these guys from taking revenge. I am a challenge. A fair and square challenge. Zhang Chen was not used to Fong Yan's way of saying things, so he could only directly state his intention. Our martial arts association often organizes competitions to compare notes. This is legal. Is it legal to hit people? Fang Yan said angrily. Is it legal for me to hit you? It is also legal, Zhang Chen said. The premise is that you can knock me down. Hearing you say that, I am relieved, Fang Yan said. The original intention of practicing martial arts is to strengthen the body and protect the family. Fighting and killing in our spare time is not what people like us do. Although I've never fought with anyone before, since you're so persistent, I'll fulfill your wish. Where shall we fight? Zhang Chen did not expect Fang Yan to agree so readily. His face was full of joy as he said, Brilliant Martial Arts School has a special competition hall. If you have any concerns, you can choose the location. He was worried that if he arranged the competition venue at Brilliant Martial Arts School, Fang Yan would not be happy. After all, it was an away game. Fang Yan could easily be surrounded by the students of Brilliant Martial Arts School. If he did not handle it well, Fang Yan would suffer a big loss. Then let's go to Brilliant Martial Arts School, Fang Yan said. I believe you guys can't do something like fighting 100 against 1. If you really can't do it, we can call the police. Chapter 108. Glory Martial Arts School's ace coach, Zhang Chen, issued a challenge to Rosefinch Secondary's language teacher, Fang Yan. Fang Yan happily accepted the challenge. Under the manipulation of someone with ulterior motives, this news instantly spread throughout Rosefinch and Glory Martial Arts School. Glory Martial Arts School's students were rubbing their hands in excitement. They were all looking forward to Zhang Chen teaching the guy who brought hope to Rosefinch's students and brought shame to Glory Martial Arts School. Zhang Chen was a professional, an ace, a 3-time MMA champion in Huaqing, and the number 1 in Huaqing in many people's hearts. They had confidence in Zhang Chen. They never thought that Zhang Chen would lose. In their dictionaries, there was absolutely no such ominous word. As for Fang Yan, although Rosefinch's students said that he was so powerful, and that he had defeated such a brilliant Japanese swordsman, who knew if they were deliberately bragging about him as a hero? Besides, Fang Yan had only defeated one person. In Zhang Chen's path, the number of people who had been defeated by him was innumerable. How could it be more than 1,000? Who was superior and who was inferior? It was obvious at a glance. The Rosefinch's students were in an uproar. The students were discussing and howling. Did teacher Fang Yan really agree? That's great, Mr. Fang should teach those guys who are all brawn and no brains a lesson. Why is the competition starting now? Why isn't it Sunday? We have to go to class today. That's right, I really want to go and cheer for Mr. Fang. What should I do? Should I ask for leave and skip class? That zombie face definitely won't agree to let him go, right? It was rare for Chinitian to appear in the classroom today. When he heard the discussion in the class, he couldn't help but smile. Watching him fight should be more interesting than going to class. Chinitian stuffed his earphones into his ears, picked up his bag, and walked out of the classroom. Seeing Chinitian's action, Tangxing quickly pushed the chair away and ran out. Chinitian! Tangxing shouted from behind. Chinitian looked back at Tangxing, smiled, and continued to move forward. Tangxing's heart was instantly filled with joy. She smiled at him and did not object to him going with her to cheer for Fang Yan. Soon, the joy turned into disappointment. Because when he took the initiative to greet her, she didn't even respond. I'm the most handsome guy in school. Why doesn't she respect me and help me protect my face? The revolution had not succeeded yet, and he still had to work hard. As long as there was a chance, Tangxing knew that he would definitely succeed. He walked quickly to Chinitian's side and walked side by side with her. He said, Chinitian, who do you think will win the competition between Zhang Chen and Mr. Fang? Fang Yan, Qin Etienne said indifferently. Although Mr. Fang is very strong, Zhang Chen is not someone to be trifled with. He's the 3-time champion of Huaqing, and the number 1 in Huaqing in name, Fang Yan, Qin Etienne said again. Tangqing was speechless. It was very difficult to find a common topic with this kind of brainless fan. Following along with Qin Etienne's constant praise of Fang Yan, he was really not happy. Since Glory Martial Arts School was a martial arts school, there would naturally be no lack of competition venues. Actually, it didn't matter where Fang Yan fought. Whether it was the hall or the courtyard, the wooden floor or the concrete floor, or even the bushes or the forest, Fang Yan could handle it with ease. The key was to defeat the opponent and not be defeated by the opponent. The Fang family's martial arts hall was classical and grand, but every time he fought with Yi Ro, she would beat him like a dog. How could Fang Yan's mood be good? Number 1 Practice Hall. This was Glory Martial Arts School's largest competition hall. Fang Yan and Zhang Chen's competition venue was chosen here. When Fang Yan and Zhang Chen arrived, number 1 practice hall was completely surrounded. Not only were the spectator seats in the hall filled with Glory Martial Arts School students, but even the windows were filled with heads. Wang Hui was also in the middle of the crowd. His face was still bandaged, and he stared viciously at Fang Yan, who was smiling and waving to the surrounding students. "Brother Hui, don't be anxious. This kid is going to be out of luck soon," Chen Jian, who was standing beside Wang Hui, said with a cold smile. "Zhang Chen isn't someone who knows how to show mercy," Wang Hui said with a ruthless voice. "Let's just wait and watch a good show." For the sake of fairness, Zhang Chen even specially invited a referee. The referee was Glory Martial Arts School's most senior coach, Lin Ping An. Lin Ping An had been a coach at Glory Martial Arts School for more than 20 years, and had practically joined when Glory Martial Arts School was founded. Not only was he the coach of Glory Martial Arts School, he was also the Deputy Secretary General of Huaqing Martial Arts Association. Lin Ping An was a short old man with slick back hair and a tuft of goatee. He wore a black tang suit and indeed looked like a master. He habitually hid one hand behind his back, stood between Fang Yan and Zhang Chen, and exhorted, in the way of exchanging pointers, "Friendship comes first, competition comes second. Don't hurt your opponent's vital points, and don't take his life. If anyone breaks the rules, then not only will he lose this match, but he will also lose his future. You two are both young, so remember not to fight fiercely. That would put you at a disadvantage." Zhang Chen repeatedly agreed, saying that he definitely wouldn't. Fang Yan was even more vehement in his denial, saying that they were all friends, so how could he hurt his friend or take his friend's life? That was the act of a beast. Lin Ping An took 3 steps back and made a gesture with his hands. Fang Yan and Zhang Chen understood, and both of them retreated, putting a distance between them. "Are you ready?" Lin Ping An asked. "Ready," Fang Yan and Zhang Chen answered at the same time. "Begin." Lin Ping An raised his hand and chopped down forcefully, as if he was chopping a hard object. Dong dong dong, Zhang Chen took the lead to attack, his body slightly bent as he charged towards Fang Yan's position. Zhang Chen was around 180 centimeters tall. According to common sense, he wasn't too tall, so he couldn't compete with others in terms of strength. He wasn't short enough, and he wouldn't have much of an advantage in speed. However, this was Zhang Chen's specialty. He had both strength and speed. This was also the reason why he repeatedly defeated strong opponents in Huaqing's freestyle arena and achieved good results. He charged towards Fang Yan like a raging bull, and the distance between the two was closed in an instant. Hua! A huge fist headed straight for Fang Yan's face. The veins on his fist bulged, and the bones in his fingers were cracking. The whistling wind broke the silence of the scene, and a cold and dangerous aura headed straight for Fang Yen. Swords could kill, and so could sword aura. Fists could hurt, and so could the wind generated by the fists. Fang Yen was sure that Zhang Qin only had a body of strength honed through years of persistent training and rich combat experience. He definitely didn't have internal energy like them. However, he could actually use his body's strength to create such a powerful wind. It was enough to show that he lived up to his reputation as the number one in watching. The closer the fist was to the face, the darker the color of the fist. In the end, it turned crimson red, as if it was about to burn during the process of the punch. Fang Yen took a step back. He only took a step back, and just happened to avoid the attack of Zhang Chen's domineering punch. Clatter, the students of Glory Martial School applauded vigorously, and some even cheered loudly. Did you see that? Our coach Zhang beat that kid back with one punch. That's right, whether it's a mule or a horse, he's going to show his true colors now. Coach's punch was so domineering. If Fang Yen dared to take it head-on with his small body, he would definitely be sent flying. His first punch missed, but this didn't affect Zhang Chen's performance. His body moved forward rapidly, his body pouncing forward, his hands clenched into claws, but his right leg was raised high. Fish to knee. This was a combo. In other words, Zhang Chen's first punch and his current first move were the same move. His first punch went straight for the face, in order to hit Fang Yen, or to beat Fang Yen back. After hitting Fang Yen, the second move was used, and Fang Yen was already on the ground, unable to get up. Since he couldn't hit Fang Yen, the second move was used, and Fang Yen was still in extreme danger. This was because he was the one attacking. Advancing forward was always faster than retreating. When the first punch was thrown, he had already calculated the difference between Fang Yan's retreating speed and his advancing speed. This was experience. Combat experience. Whoosh, Fang Yan's body quickly fell to the left, at a 90-degree vertical angle. His left hand landed on the ground, and the strength of his wrist supported his whole body's weight, so he didn't fall heavily on the ground. The students of Glory Martial School were even more excited. Did you see that? Coach knocked him down, in less than 3 moves. With my experience, Coach will win in less than 3 moves. Coach, give him a vicious blow. Seeing Fang Yen fall to the ground, Zhang Chen's eyes flashed with an ominous glint. His raised right leg suddenly stomped down, ruthlessly stepping on Fang Yan's abdomen. Gotcha, his foot missed. The brown leather boots on his feet stomped heavily on the wooden floor of the training hall, and fine cracks instantly appeared on the floor. The cracks were still spreading, and the cracks were getting bigger and bigger, looking like they were about to explode. Fang Yen, who had one hand on the ground, avoided that killer move, and his 2 legs nimbly twisted towards Zhang Chen's lower body. Using Zhang Chen's legs as a new fulcrum, his body turned 360 degrees. Dragon Tail Cut. This was one of the killer moves of the Tai Chi stick formula, famous for attacking the lower body. Even if the dragon's tail was stuck, it could only be cut off with one cut. Not to mention the 2 legs of an ordinary person. Zhang Chen's lower body was unstable, and his huge body fell to the ground. Bang! A loud sound reverberated through the air, causing everyone present to tremble in fear. It ended just like that. Chapter 109. What kind of battle was the most exciting? The 2 opponents were evenly matched, fighting to the death with their fists. This kind of battle was exciting and pleasing to the eye. Zhang Chen punched hard enough, but he couldn't touch the corner of Fang Yan's clothes. Fang Yan knocked down Zhang Chen, but no matter how much strength he used, it gave people a feeling of being light. The onlookers all said that it was too unsatisfying. Fong Yen supported himself with his palms and jumped up from the ground. He cupped his hands to Zhang Chen and said with a smile, "Thank you for letting me win." Coach Zhang has good skills. Everyone condemned Fong Yen for being too shameless. He had won and still said such sarcastic words. No matter how good Coach Zhang's skills were, he was still defeated by you. Teacher Fong Yen felt very wronged. This was the standard saying on the martial arts field. If someone else said it, it would be noble and unquestionable integrity. How could it be that he said it as shameless? Zhang Chen got up from the ground. Because of the heavy fall just now, his chest was still in pain. What made him want to vomit blood was that the match had ended before he could even touch Fong Yan's skin. He couldn't enjoy the pleasure of fighting and couldn't test the depth of Fong Yan. One could imagine the grievance in his heart. He stared at Fong Yan angrily and said, "This is not over." Fong Yan laughed and said, "What do I have to do to stop?" "Let's fight again," Zhang Chen said. "Let's have a good fight. Hit my head, hit my flesh, hit my bones. Let me feel pain. A heart-wrenching pain. This is a fight." "That's not good, is it?" Fong Yan refused. Just now, Mr. Lin said that in a way of learning from each other, friendship comes first and competition comes second. You can't hurt people's vital parts or take their lives. If we fight fiercely here, won't we be a joke to the watching students? You and I are both teachers. We can't set a bad example for our students. Zhang Chen felt the pain in his chest increase. It was as if someone had stabbed a knife into the original foundation. Lin Ping'an knew Zhang Chen's character as a martial arts fanatic. It was unrealistic to expect him to give up just like that. He coughed and said, "I did say that friendship comes first and competition comes second, but I also hope that the two teachers can bring an exciting battle to everyone." Lin Ping'an looked at the surrounding Glory students and asked, "Are you guys satisfied?" "No." The students of Glorious Academy shouted in unison. Lin Ping'an smiled and said, "It's not just you guys who didn't get enough of it. Even I, this old man, didn't get enough of it. I didn't even see what was going on before the battle ended. What a pity." In the end, Lin Ping'an still sided with Zhang Chen. If Fong Yan defeated Zhang Chen and attempted to further injure Zhang Chen's body, he would definitely stand up and shout that friendship comes first and competition comes second. You can't hurt people's bodies or take their lives. However, right now, Zhang Chen still wanted to continue fighting. Lin Ping'an could only go against his will and speak up for Zhang Chen. Fong Yan looked at Lin Ping'an and asked, "Old Mr. Lin, do you mean for us to fight again?" "Fight again," Lin Ping'an said. "Give us a good fight." Fong Yan's eyes turned cold. He smiled and nodded, saying, "Then as you wish." The distance between Fong Yan and Zhang Chen was pulled apart again. Lin Ping'an stood between the two and asked, "Are you two ready?" "Ready." Fong Yan and Zhang Chen said at the same time. "Begin." Lin Ping'an's hand chopped down again. As soon as Lin Ping'an's voice fell, Fong Yan's body disappeared from where he stood. "Aw!" someone exclaimed. Because when their eyes scanned the figure of Fong Yan, he had already rushed in front of Zhang Chen and punched towards Zhang Chen's face. He rushed forward and punched in a straight line. It was exactly the same move that Zhang Chen had just used. The difference was that Fong Yan was faster and punched more fiercely. It was so fast that you couldn't catch his trace and so fast that you couldn't hear the whistling wind. Zhang Chen wanted to dodge but found that he couldn't. Just when he wanted to retreat, the fist was already in front of him. Bang! Fong Yan's fist hit Zhang Chen's face. With a crack sound, Zhang Chen's nose was broken. The nose was one of the most vulnerable parts of the human body. A slight hit would cause blood to spurt out. Dark red blood sprayed out and splashed in the direction that Fong Yan was rushing from. Seeing that Fong Yan's face was about to be dyed with blood, he turned on one leg and avoided the scattered blood. He had already jumped into the arms of Zhang Qin. Fong Yan's hands turned into claws and grabbed Zhang Chen's camouflage sportswear. He pulled his body down and his right knee hit his stomach. If the punch to the bridge of the nose was still bearable, then the lethal force of the knee hitting the abdomen was too great. Even if Zhang Chen's resistance to blows was amazing, he still couldn't help but let out a cry of pain. Ugh! Zhang Chen groaned and his body staggered backward. Dong dong! When he was about to take the third step out of danger, Fong Yan's body leaned forward slightly and grabbed his arm. Like a dragonfly touching the water. He pushed and pulled. He pushed forward to reduce the force and pulled back to control it. Then, Zhang Chen's body fell in the direction of Fong Yan again. So dirty. Fong Yan frowned when he saw his blood-stained face and clothes. With a kick, Zhang Chen's body flew into the air. Boom! Such a big piece of meat fell on the floor, making a sound that sent chills down one's spine. Falling from such a high place, his bones would probably fall apart, right? A fatal blow. Fong Yan used Zhang Chen's move to defeat him. Zhang Chen didn't have any ability to fight back. What did this mean? It meant that the two of them weren't from the same world. They weren't on the same level at all. Fong Yan could completely suppress him and beat him down. The whole place was quiet. No one talked, no one laughed, and no one answered Fong Yan's question. Even their breathing felt so heavy. Zhang Chen, Glory Martial Arts School's ace coach, Watching's 3-time MMA champion, and was still called Watching's MMA king. How could he be so weak in front of this man? Although it wasn't hot-blooded, it wasn't exciting, and there were no punches hitting flesh. However, everyone was shocked by what they saw. Shocked by his strength. Shocked by his unbelievable strength. They felt their hearts pounding as if they were about to jump out of their chests. Fong Yan scanned the whole place and said with a smile, "Sorry. I can't show you the scene of you punching me and I kicking you." Glory Martial Arts School students finally came to their senses. Some of the students ran toward Zhang Chen, wanting to help him up and check on his injuries. More people surrounded Fong Yan, preparing to use their advantage in numbers to punish this arrogant and ruthless person. Wang Hui's expression was ferocious. He led the crowd forward and roared, "Stop him and avenge the coach." Fong Yan didn't hide or evade. He stood proudly without fear. He stood in place without moving, as if waiting for those students who had lost control of their emotions to rush over. Baldy was alone. Seeing that these students wanted to gang up on Fong Yan, he desperately squeezed forward and shouted, "Get out of the way, get out of the way, I'm from the security department." Fong Yingying and Fong Haohan were also watching from the side. They didn't expect these students to dare to stand in a circle. By the time the two of them reacted, they were already squeezed to the back of the crowd. "Hero, they want to bully junior martial uncle," Fong Haohan said aloud. "They can't bully him," Fong Yingying said with a cold smile. As he spoke, his hands reached forward and grabbed a student's shoulder with each hand. With a forceful swing, their bodies fell to one corner. Fong Yingying didn't even look at them. He had already grabbed the back of the neck of the other two students. Lin Ping and was checking Zhang Chen's body. Seeing that these guys wanted to gang up on him, he immediately stopped them. "What are you doing? What do you want? Get back, get back. Disciplinary team, disciplinary team." The first student rushed toward Fong Yan. He punched Fong Yan's body. Fong Yan leaned his body slightly and grabbed his arm. The opponent's fist didn't stop. He stabbed the chest of a student on the opposite side. Another attacker slashed at Fong Yan's ribs with his saber. Fong Yan pulled his saber back, and the student spun on the spot. He became a sandbag in front of Fong Yan, and was beaten black and blue by countless people. The third attacker was sent flying by Fong Yan with a kick. The fourth attacker was knocked to the ground by Fong Yan's knee. Fong Yan moved. He actually took the initiative to walk toward the crowd and toward the entrance of hall number 1. "If I want to leave, who can stop me?" Fong Yan shouted arrogantly. He reached out his hand. While the student in front of him was still hesitating whether to hit his face or kick him, he slapped him down. At the same time, the two of them quickly changed positions. It turned out that Fong Yan was behind him and the student was in front of him. In an instant, he became the student in front of Fong Yan. He pushed the student behind him and used his body as a sandbag to block the 5 to 6 fists and more than 10 feet behind him. No matter how ferocious the punches were, no matter how sharp the kicks were, no matter how fierce the attacks were, they were all hitting the air in front of him. Fong Yan was besieged by countless people. However, these people couldn't touch his skin or even the corner of his clothes. He raised his foot and walked forward. He didn't turn left or right. He walked straight out, as if he was taking a leisurely stroll in a courtyard. Some students rushed over, but when they saw Fong Yan's smiling face, they quickly retreated. More students parted on both sides, allowing Fong Yan to walk past them effortlessly. Occasionally, someone wanted to sneak up on him but was kicked to the ground by Fong Yan. In the end, no one dared to stand up to challenge Fong Yan. They wanted to challenge this terrifying demon. Fong Yan stopped in his tracks. He stood on the stone road. He stood in the middle of the campus. He glanced at the glorious students in front and behind him and said loudly, "Are you not convinced? Do you feel like a wild chicken with weeds? I am stronger than you. I am stronger than you. Now, you can only do one thing. Raise your head and look up to the existence of people like me." Chapter 110. At that time, the red sun in the sky had just bloomed a warm light, and the bright red triangular plum blossoms had covered the gray mottled walls. Unknown birds were singing among the tall and straight sycamore trees. When they were combing their feathers, they accidentally shook off the dew on the leaves and sprinkled it on the faces and bodies of the students. It was cold, with the refreshing smell of the leaves. It was an intoxicating and breathtaking morning. The whole place was silent. No one spoke, and even their breathing slowed down. Everyone was staring at the man standing in the middle of the crowd, the man who was invincible when he fought against 100 people. He was delicate and handsome, and his face was repulsive. He was gentle and modest, and he was arrogant and arrogant. He was cruel and merciless, and he was compassionate. He had defeated the ace coach of Glory. He had said that Glory students were useless. Everyone should hate him and ostracize him. However, from the bottom of their hearts, they had a strange impression of him. From the beginning until now, he had not seriously injured any of the students who had surrounded him. Even if he said it too bluntly and harshly, didn't this prove that he was a frank and sincere man? People who practiced martial arts most admired those who were stronger than them. Fong Yan had conquered them with his valiant strength and won their heartfelt respect. Except for Fong Yan, who else could be like him? Qinitian slightly raised her head, and under the direct light, her beautiful eyes were full of brilliance. She looked at Fong Yan in the distance, and said with a light smile, "You see, this is the man I like." The smile on Tongqing's face instantly froze. He turned around and looked at Qinitian's delicate and flawless side profile, and said, "Don't always say such things, okay? I feel very sad when I hear it. Mr. Fong is indeed very powerful, and I am proud of him now. But, do you know that one sentence of yours can completely destroy other people's good mood? Qini Tian still looked at Fang Yan, and said without turning her head, "But, what should I do? I don't like to lie and pretend." Tang Qing felt like he was about to cry. Surrounded by Fang Yingying and Fang Haohan, and accompanied by Baldy, Fang Yan walked out of the crowd and walked toward the gate of Glory Martial Arts School. Baldy felt that he had never looked so good before. He thought that his bald head, which had only a few hairs left, must be shining so brightly that they could not open their eyes. He waved his hand at the Radiant Academy students who were following behind him and saluting him, saying, go back, there's no need to send me off." After thinking for a moment, he added, "You little brats, if you dare to cause trouble at the entrance of Rosefinch Secondary again, just wait and see how I'll deal with you. If I can't deal with you, I'll let Teacher Fang Yan deal with you." The students of Glory Martial School chuckled, not taking Baldy's threat seriously at all. "You still dare to laugh, see if I don't tear your mouths apart." Baldy shouted angrily, feeling that he had lost face. "Can't you see that I'm wearing a big tiger skin? Why aren't you guys afraid at all? I'm really worried for you guys. Baldy." Fang Yan couldn't help but shout. According to Fang Yan's plan, after the speech just now, he should not speak anymore. What he needed to do was to hold his head high and his chest out. With a warm, modest, pure, and enigmatic smile on his face, he would walk through the crowd under the protection of his 2 bodyguards and walk out of the school gate. Of course, the image of these 2 bodyguards was really too bad. One was short and fat, and the other was tall and skinny. It would be best if they could be swapped. They were not worthy of the noble style that he had created with his beautiful artistic conception. Although red leaves needed green leaves to go with it, Fang Yan had every reason to believe that even if he was placed in the middle of a group of red leaves, he would still give off the feeling that he was outshining others. Yes, he was such an ordinary, yet not ordinary, simple, yet not concise man. If the appearance of Fang Yingying and Fang Haohan was barely acceptable, then Baldy following behind him and acting cute was really intolerable. "Please, you're just losing hair, not blind. How can you say such things at this time?" Thus, Fang Yan had no choice but to scold him. Hearing Fang Yan call out his name, Baldy became even more proud. He glanced at the glorious students proudly, with a look that said, "Don't you dare offend me, or I'll beat you up." He trotted to the front of Fang Yan and said, "Mr. Fang, are you looking for me?" "Don't speak." Fang Yan said. "Okay." Baldy nodded in agreement. After thinking for a while, he asked again, "Why?" "Don't speak." "Okay, I won't speak. But tell me why." Fang Yingying, beat him up. Fang Yan. A hoarse voice shouted loudly. Fang Yan suddenly turned around and saw Zhang Qin, who had been beaten to the ground by him, walking quickly towards him with the help of a few students. Fang Yan's eyelids drooped slightly. He didn't know why Zhang Qin still chased after him at this time. Could it be that he was still not convinced? Fang Yingying and Fang Haohan looked at each other and stood in front of Fang Yan, one on the left and one on the right. Baldy was a beat slower, and he used his thin body to stand in front of hero and man. Fang Yan had the urge to kick them all away. "Zhang Chen is already injured like this, why are you guys standing in front of me? Even if you want to steal the limelight, you don't have to be so blatant, right? Coach Zhang, are you okay? Coach, how are your injuries?" Coach, wherever Zhang Chen went, the students would greet him respectfully. They didn't look down on him just because he lost the battle with Fang Yan. On the contrary, after witnessing Fang Yan's true strength, the students of Glory Martial Arts School respected and admired Zhang Chen even more. It should be known that not everyone could last so long in front of Fang Yan. If they asked themselves honestly, they wouldn't be able to do it. Zhang Chen ignored the concerned questions of the students and walked straight towards Fang Yan. His body was slightly bent, and it was obvious that his shoulder or spine was injured. His right leg was a little strained when he took a step. He probably sprained it or injured it. His face was covered in blood, his hair was messy, and his clothes were wrinkled and covered in dust. He looked miserable. However, his eyes were still bright and sharp. He stared at Fang Yan without blinking, as if he was afraid that if he blinked, Fang Yan would disappear. Dong! Zhang Chen finally stood in front of Fang Yan. He raised his head and looked at Fang Yan's eyes with a serious expression. Fang Yan didn't speak, and neither did Zhang Chen. The two of them looked at each other affectionately, as if they were lovers about to part. Being stared at by a man like that for a long time, Fang Yan really felt a little uncomfortable. He cupped his hands towards Zhang Chen and said, "Swords have no eyes, fists and feet are merciless. Sometimes on the martial arts field, even if you want to stop, you have no choice. If I hit too hard, please forgive me, Coach Zhang. I want to worship you as my teacher," Zhang Chen said. "What?" Fang Yan couldn't believe his ears. "I want to worship you as my teacher," Zhang Chen said again. His voice was louder than before, and his expression was more determined and persistent. "Please accept me as your disciple." The teachers and students of Glory Martial School were all stunned. Zhang Chen wanted to worship Fang Yan as his teacher. Zhang Chen was their coach, their teacher. If he worshipped Fang Yan as his teacher, then, what should they call Fang Yan? With such a close relationship, how would they fight in the future? Fang Yan looked at Zhang Chen's eyes and knew that this man wasn't lying. He really wanted to worship him as his teacher. Fang Yan refused and said, "Coach Zhang, don't joke around. How am I qualified to be your teacher? Coach Zhang has ample stamina and rich fighting experience. As long as he practices diligently, he will definitely have even more extraordinary achievements in the future. I'm not joking. I really want to worship you as my teacher. I definitely want to worship you as my teacher," Zhang Chen said with a heavy voice. Because his emotions were too agitated, the wound on his chest was pulled, and he even covered his mouth and coughed a few times. "Before today, before sparring with you, I also thought that I had extraordinary strength and rich fighting experience, and that there was almost no one in Huaqing who could match me. But, after sparring with Mr. Fang, I realized how laughable my thoughts were. There is always someone better than you out there. The old ancestor has never lied to us. I know how big the gap between us is, a gap higher than the sky and deeper than the sea. You have the qualifications to be my teacher, but I'm afraid that I don't have the qualifications to be your disciple." Zhang Chen bowed his head and bowed, almost using a pleading tone to say, "Mr. Fang, please accept me as your disciple." Fang Yan sighed softly and said, "Coach Zhang, I can't accept you as my disciple. I'm just a teacher, a language teacher. The martial arts I learned are to strengthen my body, and I've never thought of using it for anything else. I'm a low-key person, and I don't want my life to become overly complicated. So, let's maintain the status quo. You continue to be the coach of Brilliant Martial Arts School, and I'll continue to be my language teacher at Rosefinch Secondary. When we're free, let's meet up for a drink. It's that simple." Fang Yan waved his hand and said, "I have to go back. The next 2 periods are language classes." Zhang Chen tried his best to straighten his back, and said to the students who were supporting him on both sides, "Let go of me." "Coach, let go," Zhang Chen shouted. The students didn't dare to disobey, and could only let go of his arms. Thump! Zhang Chen knelt on the ground. Under the gazes and astonishment of hundreds of brilliant martial arts school teachers and students, he knelt on the stone pavement in the middle of the school grounds. "I beg you," Zhang Chen shouted at Fang Yan's back. Chapter 111. A man's knees were gold. Zhang Chen's kneeling really gave Fang Yan a headache. Accept it. That was not realistic. It was not like what was written in novels or movies. The reason was that Kung Fu was only passed on to males and not females. Although Fang Yan knew that there were indeed many sects that still adhered to such a rule, they would rather let their Kung Fu be lost than teach it to outsiders. However, Fang Tai Chi was open to the public. Whether it was Fang Yingying or Fang Haohan, they were not members of the Fang family. Mo Qingdi, who was originally trained by the Fang family to be their successor, was also not a member of the Fang family. He was just a language teacher. He could run away at any time. His own Tai Chi heart was stagnant. Fang Yingying and Fang Haohan's jobs had not been settled. He had too many important things to do. How could he have time and energy to train disciples? Refuse? That was for sure. However, if it was not handled well, it might hurt this sincere and persistent man. This was also what Fang Yan did not want to see. He walked back again and stood in front of Zhang Qin. He said, "Coach Zhang, you are forcing me." Zhang Chen looked up at Fang Yan and said, "I know. In front of my students, in front of my colleagues, in the school where I have worked for 10 years, in front of a man who is about the same age as my students, I am also in a difficult position. I am also forcing myself. But, Teacher Fang, you can't understand what Kung Fu means to me. You don't know what he means to me. He is all I have. I live for it, because I still have a body of martial arts. I want to improve. I want to be strong. I want to be like Mr. Fang. I know that I only have brute force. I haven't found the skill to use it. Mr. Fang, please teach me. Mr. Fang, please teach me. What should I do?" Needless to say, Zhang Chen's comprehension was very high. After exchanging blows with Fang Yan, he had already discovered his shortcoming. In the past, he only used to hit people with force. Today, he discovered another realm from Fang Yan. Fang Yan didn't use much strength. When he hit people, it was easy and casual. In fact, he even borrowed the strength of the attacker. But you didn't even get to touch the corner of his clothes before you were knocked down by him. This was the difference between the two of them. Of course, this was only what he could see with his naked eye. There were also many things that he couldn't see with his naked eyes. We often say that there are 3 realms in life. The first realm is to see mountains as mountains and water as water. The second realm was to not see mountains as mountains, and not see water as water. The third level was to see mountains as mountains and rivers as water as water. It was the same for martial arts. Zhang Chen was still in the first stage of seeing mountains as mountains and water as water, while Fang Yan was already in the second stage of seeing mountains as mountains and water as water. Therefore, there was an insurmountable barrier between the two of them. Fang Yan could clearly see through Zhang Chen, but Zhang Chen couldn't see the depth of Fang Yan's strength. Fang Yan raised his eyebrows and said, "Coach Zhang, why make it so difficult for me to force you? To be honest, before we met today, we weren't very familiar. You don't understand me, and I don't understand you. Even when I walked into the gates of Glory Martial Arts School, I still had some prejudice against you. I thought it was because of what happened that night that you deliberately challenged me to take revenge. Of course, now that I've come into contact with Coach Zhang, I know that my thoughts were gauging the heart of a gentleman with my own mean measure. Coach Zhang's character and strength are both trustworthy. But, I don't think this is the reason why I should accept you as my disciple. You're anxious to improve, anxious to become stronger. I'm the same as you. I'm also anxious to improve. I also have stronger people to defeat. I'm very busy every day. So, you too. So, let's talk about becoming your disciple in the future. Seeing the disappointment and pain in Zhang Chen's eyes, Fang Yan couldn't bear it and said, however, we can be friends. In the future, if you have any doubts or questions, you can ask and we can discuss them together. Two people discussing is always better than one person thinking bitterly, right? Come, get up. Don't kneel. As Fang Yan spoke, he bent down to help Zhang Chen up from the ground. Kneeling in front of him in front of so many people, what was this? Fang Yan couldn't bear it. No, I must become your disciple. Zhang Chen still insisted on kneeling on the ground, his expression firm and voice stubborn as he said, I know, my actions today were too rash. I know your rules. Accepting a disciple doesn't just look at the disciple's comprehension, it's more important to look at the disciple's temperament. You still don't understand me, so not accepting me is a matter of course. I will persist, I will definitely wait until you are willing to accept me as your disciple. Fang Yan looked deeply at Zhang Chen, patted his shoulder hard and said, find some alcohol to rub your wounds. Don't do any extreme exercises these few days. After saying that, Fang Yan turned and left. Fang Yingying and Fang Haohan, the two dutiful bodyguards, immediately followed. Baldy wanted to say a few more harsh words, but he didn't know what else to say after holding it in for a long time. He waved his hand and left behind Fang Yan in a very stylish manner. Fang Yan. At the entrance of Brilliant Martial Arts School, a clear girl's voice came from behind. Fang Yan turned around and saw Qinitian in rosefinch uniform running towards him. Tangqing was a competent follower, following closely behind Qinitian. Why are you two here? Fang Yan asked doubtfully. Qinitian looked up and smiled lightly, saying, if you say you only saw me now, I will pretend to be deceived by you. Okay. Fang Yan knew that his lie was seen through by Qinitian. He had indeed seen Qinitian and Tangqing standing outside the crowd a long time ago. In a strange place like Brilliant Martial Arts School, where there were many boys and almost zero girls, it was hard not to notice a stunning girl like Qinitian. Fang Yan smiled awkwardly and said, what's the matter? Nothing, Qinitian said. I ran over to ask you a question. What question? Fang Yan, I like you more and more, what should I do? Fang Yan blushed and pretended to be angry. What are you talking about? Hurry back to class. He looked at Tangqing and said, Tangqing, you have to supervise Qinitian to class. You are not allowed to skip class or else I will deduct your conduct points. After saying that, Fang Yan turned around and left. His footsteps were swift and fast. Fang Yingying and Fang Haohan looked at each other, hesitated for a moment, and then quickly chased in the direction that Fang Yan left. Junior Martial Uncle, who is this little girl? Why is she so bold and fierce? Fang Yingying followed behind Fang Yan and asked. I feel that she is very dangerous. Fang Haohan heard that the woman was in danger and said, I will go take care of her. Fang Yingying stopped Fang Haohan who wanted to go back and beat the girl, and said, Junior Martial Uncle is very dangerous. Don't worry, no one is safer than you. Even I am 100 times more dangerous than you. Fang Haohan thought carefully but still couldn't figure out why he was so safe. Junior Martial Uncle and Fang Yingying's kung fu were better than his. It shouldn't be. She is prettier than Miss Yi, Fang Yingying praised. After a pause, he thought of Miss Ye's ferocious look when she beat people, so he quickly changed his words and said, she is as beautiful as Miss Yi. I don't think she is very beautiful. Baldy was very proud but deliberately showed a trace of disdain, and said, she is just Qinitian. She walks in front of me every day. Baldy was the school's security guard, and his duty was to protect the safety of the students at the school gate. Of course, he occasionally cooperated with the school to check if the students were wearing their student IDs. Chinitian indeed walked in front of Baldi every day after class. Xiaxia Mountain. It was the highest mountain in the Lingnan area and also a famous tourist attraction in Huaqing. Because the 9th class performed well when they received the Wu Rin investigation group, the school specially allocated a sum of money for the 9th class's travel expenses as a reward. After a discussion with the students, Fang Yan chose Xiaxia Mountain, which was near Huaqing. They would leave on Saturday and go back on Sunday afternoon. They would spend a night on the mountain. Every student looked forward to watching the sunrise from the top of the mountain. However, in order to persuade the school to agree to their plan, Fang Yan tried his best to persuade Lu Chaoga. The luxurious bus spun and spun on the rugged mountain road. Fang Yan stood beside the driver with his back facing the mountain rocks and grass in front of him. He looked at the bus full of class 9 students and said, "Students, come, let's sing a song." "What song?" The lively Suing was the first to ask. Fang Yan thought about it and felt that he was not good at this kind of thing. He said, "Who is the member of the sports committee?" "That's me." Su Ying's cheerful voice sounded again in the bus. Fang Yan looked at Suing and said, "Then, Suing, you take the lead and sing a song. Everyone sing along. Since it's a trip, how can there be no singing? Then let's sing A Love Letter by Teresa Ting. I like this song very much." Suing looked at Fang Yan and said, "A love letter of yours makes my face blush and my heart skip a beat. Ready, go. A love letter of yours makes my face blush and my heart skip a beat. Your frankness and passion make me not know what to do. Your tender and sweet feelings are like the rhythm of nature lingering in my ears. Your love makes me think about you day and night." The students' cheerful and melodious voices came from the bus. However, when Fang Yan heard this song, he felt restless. He looked at Suing, who was singing passionately, and thought to himself, "Could she be the one who stuffed a paper crane love letter into my lesson plan?" Chapter 112. The stream flowed gently and the waterfall flowed violently. The colorful mountain scenery made people feel like they were in a fairyland painting. In the 10th month of the human world, fiery red maple leaves covered the mountains and plains like sunset. This was the origin of the name Sunset Sacrifice Mountain. Beside a small stream in the depths of the mountain forest, 2 young and cute girls were sitting on a small stool, concentrating on drawing on a drawing board. They had obviously been here for a long time. The meticulous painting on the drawing board had already entered the stage of rendering. The so-called rendering was used to express the brightness and darkness of the painting on the draft. Using 2 relatively large big cloud brushes, one would be dipped in ink while the other would be dipped in water. Before the ink dried, they would use water to release the ink, creating a natural transition. Rendering was the foundation of a painting success. If the ink was too thick, it would be too dark. If the ink was too shallow, it would appear blank. Therefore, the 2 girls didn't dare to be careless in the slightest. After finishing the last stroke, Yuan Lin threw the brush in her hand into the toolbox and seriously looked at the work on the drawing board. She said with a smile, "It seems that there's a piece that hasn't been released. It seems that the control of the fire isn't good enough. I can only paint this piece as a stone when I'm dyeing it. However, in this way, my Sunset Sacrifice Autumn charm can only be called Sunset Sacrifice Scenery." What a failure. The girl was wearing white casual pants, red casual shoes, and a white t-shirt with a cartoon pattern printed on it. She had a small cherry mouth and a straight nose. Her skin was delicate and white, and her facial features were so exquisite that there were almost no flaws. Her long black hair fell over her shoulders, making her look obedient and cute. Not hearing a reply from her companion, Yuan Lin turned to look at Jiang Qin, who was not far behind her, and shouted, "Dear, dear, what are you doing? Can you hear me?" Jiang Qin raised his head and glanced at Yuan Lin, then quickly shifted his gaze back to the drawing board in front of him. He said, "Wait. I haven't finished rendering yet." Her long hair was tied into countless small braids, revealing a clean and cute forehead. Some people said that those who dared to reveal their smooth forehead were either handsome or beautiful. This saying might not be suitable for everyone. After all, Sister Feng also had such a hairstyle. But it was fully fulfilled on this girl. The sky blue skinny jeans were stained with a lot of paint, and the colorful canvas shoes looked a little old, but it gave off an artistic feeling. She wore a white singlet, revealing a large portion of her snow-white neck and sexy collarbone. It was covered with a plaid striped shirt. Only the bottom two buttons of the shirt were fastened, making it look casual and fashionable. She was also a beautiful girl. At first glance, she looked somewhat similar to Yuan Lin. However, upon closer inspection, one could see that the two of them were clearly different. Yuan Lin looked obedient and docile, but her personality was lively and quick-witted, while Jiang Qin's dressing style was like a ghost horse, but it gave people a lazy and gentle feeling. Their looks and personalities contradicted each other, yet they were a perfect match. Perhaps, this is what we often say, when a person lacks something, he will chase after it. Your painting skills are better than mine. Teacher also said that you are more talented than me. Usually, you finish painting before me. Why are you slower than me today? A smile appeared on the corner of Yuan Lin's mouth. She suddenly ran toward Jiang Qin and said, "What are you painting? Let me see." Clatter, Jiang Qin immediately put down the brush and quickly took out a piece of white paper from under the drawing board to cover the painting he was just developing. Yuan Lin could only see a vague shadow, so she couldn't determine what Jiang Qin was painting. She pouted and said, "Jiang Qin, you are not loyal. I have shown you my painting. Why don't you show me yours? Didn't you say you want to paint maple falling full stream?" Not far from them, there was a small stream. The water was clear, and there were countless withered maple leaves falling from it. Jiang Qin liked it at first sight, so he wanted to paint this scene. He also gave it a name, Maple Falling Full Stream. "Yuan Lin, you are so annoying," Jiang Qin said with a red face. "How am I annoying? I just want to see your painting. If you want to see mine, please feel free. I'm not going to be secretive like some people are." "Humph, you have a guilty conscience," Yuan Lin said with disdain. She suddenly seemed to understand something. She looked at Jiang Qin with a strange look and said, "Jiang Qin, you are not painting that, are you?" Jiang Qin's cheeks became redder. He pretended to be righteous and said rudely, "How am I feeling guilty? What do I have to feel guilty about? My maple falling full stream is not finished yet. Of course, I can't show it to you. I want to show my work in the most perfect way. It is still gray now. Why must I show it to you?" "No." Yuan Lin stared at Jiang Qin with sparkling eyes and said, "That's not the reason. There must be another reason." "No. There is. If I say there isn't, then there isn't. If I say there is, then there is. Think what you want. If you want to prove yourself, then show me your painting." "I won't." "Why should I prove it to you? You have a guilty conscience. You are a thief. You are a ghost. Annoying ghost." Amidst the red leaves and green grass, the two girls quarreled with each other. Their coquettish and somewhat embarrassed appearance, and their clear and melodious voice, like the tinkling sound of a clear spring behind them, made people feel relaxed and happy, and made people want to draw them into a painting. Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin lay side by side on the maple leaves in the grass, looking at the fiery red maple tree above their heads in a daze. After a long time, Yuan Lin asked, "Are you still thinking about him?" "Thinking?" Jiang Qin sighed softly. "Rather than thinking, it is better to say that I miss him." "Then I still miss him," Yuan Lin said. "For women like us, if we sigh for a man, it means that we have him in our hearts. You can't lie to me, because you can't lie to yourself. At our age, saying that love is too extravagant. It is just a beautiful memory in life. In the future, we will experience countless such fragments, and when these pictures are pieced together, it will be our lifetime of love. It is just that my time with him is too short. It is so short that I don't know what to recall even if I try my best. A gentle look, a touching word of love, or even just an ordinary brush of the shoulder, can be the content of memories. Is he really that good? Not good at all. Then why can't you forget him? The best way to forget a relationship is to start a new one. You also know that more than half of the guys on the school hunk lish like you. Are you really not willing to give them a chance? They are too childish. Jiang Qin said. That is true. Yuan Lin nodded. They only know how to send flowers, snacks, and write love poems. Their thinking is not mature at all. A man should wield his sword and kill in all directions. A concubine plays the zither, drifts with her husband, and laughs with him 3,000 times. Why don't they understand? A man must first wield his sword and kill in all directions to win a beauty who is willing to play the zither and laugh with him. In the future, they will understand, right? Without the precipitation of life experience and the struggle in society, how can they have such a deep and painful understanding? Sigh. Yuan Lin sighed deeply. Sigh. Jiang Qin also sighed deeply. The two women were feeling sentimental about their love that had ended before they even started and their sad and helpless fate when a man's sudden shout woke them up. Jocko, here, oh, someone is drawing here. The man spoke in English, so he should be a foreign tourist. Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin hurriedly sat up from the grass and saw a tall man with brown hair and blue eyes preparing to look at their drawing. They hurriedly stopped him. What do you want to do? Stop. Thinking that this American might not understand Huaxia language, Yuan Lin said it again in English, please do not look at other people's things without permission. This is very immoral behavior. There were 3 Americans, 2 Caucasians, and 1 black. They all had the typical tall figure of Westerners, and they were also very good-looking. They carried a huge bag on their backs and had professional Hasselblad cameras around their necks. Seeing 2 excessively beautiful girls jump out of the grass, like 2 fairies falling from the sky, the 3 Americans were pleasantly surprised. Oh, sorry. The dark-skinned Jocko took the initiative to apologize to Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin. It's my friend who is too rude. We should be considered as half of the same profession. When I saw someone drawing, I couldn't help but want to look. He turned out to be speaking Huaxia language. Although he was not very fluent, there was no problem in communicating. He pointed to the camera hanging around his neck and said, "We are photographers. The photographers of National Geographic magazine. You write the beautiful picture in front of you on paper, and we record the beautiful picture with the camera. We are all artists. Aren't we?" Hearing that the man claimed to be a photographer of National Geographic magazine, Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin were a little relieved. National Geographic was a very famous travel magazine in the world, and both of them were die-hard fans of National Geographic. After so many years of reading the magazine, now seeing their staff, they felt a sense of surprise and familiarity. Seeing the 2 girls let down their guard, the smile on Jocko's face became more charming. He took the initiative to reach out to Yuan Lin and said, "Hello, I'm Jocko. This is my companion, Mason. Oh, the one who shook hands with your friend is Bolton." After the introduction, Jocko looked around professionally and said to Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin, "Two beautiful ladies, I have a very important thing to ask of you. Please promise me." "What is it?" "Can you be our models?" Jocko said sincerely. Chapter 113. Models. Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin were confused. Weren't they here to take pictures of the scenery? Why did they have to take pictures of people? Yes. Jocko nodded seriously. If you have read National Geographic, you should know that we like the scenery and beautiful pictures. Everything valuable or meaningful needs to be recorded by our cameras. We came to Mount Xiaoxia to take pictures of the maple leaves on the mountain. But I think if we only take pictures of the maple leaves, the picture will be too monotonous. The fair-skinned Bolton pointed to the surrounding environment and said in English, "Look, the red maple leaves, the slowly flowing stream, the fallen leaves in the stream, the bright sunlight peeking through the treetops, and the beautiful girls painting in the maple forest. Oh, God, what a moving picture. This must be the work of God. I can't wait." Yes. Mason stood in front of Jiang Qin, his eyes filled with uncontrollable greed. "If you are willing to be our models, once your photos are published in National Geographic, you will become famous. Famous people all over the world. At that time, not only will your paintings be popular, but you will also become big stars. Promise us." Jocko waited for his friends to express themselves and then began to make a concluding statement. "You see, my colleagues and I are very sincere. We hope that two beautiful girls can walk into our camera, and we also hope that you can be published in National Geographic. One had to know that this magazine wasn't something that just anyone could publish. Even Jessica Alba and Angelina Jolie can't." Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin looked at each other and immediately understood each other's thoughts. Jiang Qin stood up and said, "Thank you for your kindness. But I'm really sorry, we don't want to be models. This is not suitable for us." "How could it not be suitable?" Jacob said anxiously. "You are so beautiful, like a masterpiece of God. The scenery here is so beautiful, and also a masterpiece of nature. A beauty matched with a beautiful scenery. Wouldn't they be equally matched?" "Oh, don't reject us, we'll go crazy." "What a pity," Mason said. "It's not every day that something like this happens. It has been almost a month since we arrived at Huaxia. We have been wandering around Xixia Mountain for 3 days. Today, we have finally found the scenery that can truly move one's heart. However, this cannot be separated from the two beautiful ladies. You are the souls in the painting, and the maple leaves that cover the mountains and plains are just your decorations." "I'm really sorry," Yuan Lin said. "We're still students. We don't want to be famous. I don't want to be featured in National Geographic. I hope you can consider it carefully. If you are willing, we are willing to pay you a considerable sum of money. Of course, this will have to wait until your photos are selected by the magazine," Jocko said. He felt very strange. They had used this trick to deceive many girls and women in Huaxia. They had been in Huaxia for a long time. When they had nothing to do, they liked to go to the bar. When those women saw their appearance and identity as Americans, they would flock to them and take the initiative to sleep with them. Even some women who were not very interested in them, when they inadvertently revealed their identity as National Geographic photographers and proposed to take a group of photos that had a sense of art and showcased the lifestyle of women in Huaxia, they immediately lost the ability to resist and obediently followed their orders. However, these two girls had the courage to refuse again and again. Why would they refuse? Didn't they want to become famous overnight? Didn't they like foreign men? Weren't girls of this age the most easily tempted and the most materialistic? Yuan Lin wanted to refuse again, but Jiang Qin reached out and pulled her arm. Yuan Lin looked at Jiang Qin in surprise. Could it be that this girl had fallen for him? Will there be a fee? Jiang Qin asked in fluent English. Jocko laughed and said, "Of course. Our fee is the highest in the industry. If we get the money, we will definitely give you a very good fee. If you don't believe us, we can pay some deposit in advance." "We believe you." Jiang Qin smiled sweetly and said. "How should we take the photo?" Jocko and his friend Mason Bolton looked at each other and said, "Just maintain your normal posture when you are painting. Then let's go wash our faces first." "Our faces are dirty, it won't look good in photos," Jiang Qin said. "No need." Mason stepped forward and blocked the way of Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin. He said, "Just maintain the current state, very good. What we want is the original state." "If that's the case," Jiang Qin said, "that couldn't be better. Can we go to the bathroom first?" Mason frowned slightly, a little unwilling. Jocko pulled him aside and said to Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin, "Of course, no problem." "You are really a gentleman," Jiang Qin praised. "Thank you for your compliment." Jocko was overjoyed in his heart. He knew that his goal was about to be achieved. These two small fish had taken the bait. Jiang Qin grabbed Yuan Lin's hand and said, "Didn't you say you wanted to go to the bathroom? Let's go together." Yuan Lin thought, when did I say I wanted to go to the bathroom? However, she had already sensed that the atmosphere was not right, so she let Jiang Qin grab her hand and walked away. "Jocko." Mason's tone was not good, and he looked at Jocko with resentment. Jocko made a shushing gesture, signaling Mason to be quiet, and pointed to the drawing board and toolbox not far away. Only then did Mason feel relieved. The drawing board and toolbox were still there, so the two girls would be back soon. There is an old saying in Huaxia, "Throw a long line to catch a big fish." As long as they are willing to come back, they will definitely go with us. When have we ever failed? "I'd better go and take a look," Bolton said worriedly. Jocko nodded and said, "That's good. Don't let them go too far. The scenery here is very good." Bolton understood and said, "Of course. I like it here too." Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin were alone, so Yuan Lin had a chance to ask, "Sweetheart, are we really going to be their models?" "Of course not." Jiang Qin dragged Yuan Lin's hand and hurried away. "I'm lying to them. The three of them are not good people." "Not good people? Aren't they National Geographic photojournalists?" "I don't know if they are reporters or not. Didn't you notice? The three of them are standing right in front of us, except for that impassable stream. Those be asterisk stars." Yuan Lin cursed. "We don't want our drawings anymore." "Safety first," Jiang Qin said. "Let's go find the police and ask them to take us to the drawing board." "That's all we can do," Yuan Lin said. "Let's go faster." "We can't go too fast, this place is too remote, don't let them suspect." Just then, they heard the sound of something breaking behind them. Jiang Qin knew they were being followed, so he shouted, "Run!" Thus, the two little girls broke into a run. Bolton was stunned, knowing that the two girls had seen through their intentions. As he ran, he shouted for his friends, "Jocko, Mason. They're running away." Jocko and Mason were talking and laughing, discussing how to divide the ownership of the two girls. Hearing Bolton's shout, Jocko cursed, "Bitch," and quickly ran in the direction that Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin had just left. Mason was also furious. He ran over and kicked away the two easels on the ground, and also ran in the direction of Jocko. In order to find the scenery that satisfied them, the two girls went to the back mountain that had not been fully developed. The mountain road was rugged and steep, but fortunately, both of them were famous athletes in the school, so they ran very fast. They were very fast, and so were Bolton and the others who had been following them. Seeing that they were about to catch up, Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin shouted, "Help! Help!" The students happily toured the mountains and rivers, while Fang Yan was thinking about a love letter along the way. Why did Su Ying take the lead in singing that song? Was she trying to hint at something? "Mr. Fang, can we take a photo?" Several girls in the class ran over and looked at Fang Yan with a smile. "You guys go ahead." Fang Yan waved his hand. "I'll help you take a photo." "Mr. Fang, don't be so stingy, okay? We know you're a celebrity. Take a photo with us, we can show it off to others, saying that you're our class teacher." Chen Yuan pulled Fang Yan's arm and begged. Fang Yan had no choice but to nod and say, "Okay. One photo. Just one." Thus, the girls were like octopuses, crowding around him and sticking to him from all sides. Fang Yan looked awkward and said, "It's too hot, don't stand too close." He was scared by the pornographic photo incident last time. No one cared about his kind reminder. Everyone posed in front of the camera, and the students in charge of taking photos kept pressing the camera button on their mobile phones. Snap, snap. After the group of students finished taking photos, another group of students who were waiting at the side immediately surrounded them. Fang Yan was not only a celebrity in Rosefinch, but he was also very famous in the entire student circle of watching. To be able to take a photo with Mr. Fang Yan was a very prestigious thing for the students. When Fang Yan was stuck in the middle of a group of girls, he saw Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin running over. "What's going on?" Fang Yan was shocked. There are people who dare to bully the butcher's daughter. Chapter 114. Whether it was a hero or a coward, every man wanted to save a beauty. Fang Yan was surrounded by a group of students taking pictures, and he didn't have time to react. The boys of Class 9 had already crowded around them. Think about it, there were two charming little beauties running and shouting, "Help!" Any normal person would have a normal reaction, right? Huang Haoran's eyes were highly myopic, but today he was unusually agile and ran first. He let Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin run past him, and then he opened his arms to intercept them. He pointed at Bolton, who was following closely behind, and scolded, "What are you doing? Why are you chasing them?" Seeing his prey run away, Bolton couldn't suppress the anger in his heart. He pushed Huang Haoran away and said in English, "Go away, you dwarf." Huang Haoran was indeed not tall. When he stood next to the tall Bolton, they looked like a giant and a dwarf. Moreover, Huang Haoran's strength was not as great as Bolton's. Bolton angrily pushed Huang Haoran, and his feet couldn't stand steadily. His body staggered and fell backward. Fortunately, the other boys of Class 9 arrived and supported Huang Haoran's waist from behind. Of course, more boys still came to greet Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin, and asked them how they were. A guy even took out 2 bottles of Coca-Cola from his backpack and asked them if they were thirsty and if they wanted to drink some water. Who would drink Coca-Cola when they were thirsty? Huang Haoran's face turned red, and he looked at Bolton angrily and said, "How can you scold people? How can you hit people?" Seeing that more and more students gathered, Bolton finally calmed down. He didn't dare to easily hit Huang Haoran again. Bolton didn't want to answer Huang Haoran's question. He looked at Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin reluctantly and turned to leave. "Stop," Huang Haoran shouted in English. He ran up to Bolton and asked loudly, "What right do you have to scold me? What right do you have to hit me? You have to give me an explanation today." This was Huang Haoran's personality. He was straightforward and unwilling to compromise. Bolton was still unwilling to pay attention to Huang Haoran. He glanced at him disdainfully and prepared to leave again. A boy blocked his way. As soon as he turned around, he came face to face with the boy. It was as if he had been waiting for him behind him for a long time. Tangxing pointed at Huang Haoran and said, "Although I don't like to meddle in other people's business, you still owe him an explanation." Tangxing spoke in English, and Bolton had no language barrier at all. "Go away," Bolton said angrily. He stretched out his furry hand and slapped Tangxing's forehead, trying to push Tangxing away as well. Paw! Before his hand could reach Tang Cheng's face, the back of his hand was slapped. Tangxing used a lot of force, and the back of Bolton's hand immediately turned purple. After slapping Bolton, Tangxing looked at Bolton calmly and said, "I don't like men touching my body." After a pause, he said, "Girls don't like it either." Wow, the girls who were watching from behind were collectively smitten. Did you see that? Tangxing is so handsome. Ching Cheng is really charming, just like Aaron Kwok. He doesn't like men touching his body. Why can't girls do it? It's so sad, isn't it? Bolton was angry. He was completely angry. He was like an enraged lion, at least in terms of physique. He was tall and sturdy, with handsome facial features that were a quarter European. Tangxing was handsome and had the feeling of a next-door pretty boy. Standing in front of Bolton, he looked thin. However, there was no fear in his eyes when he looked at Bolton. On the contrary, from the disgust on his face, it could be seen that he was looking down on Bolton's confrontation from a high position. For him, this was just a slightly bigger ant. "You damn thing, how dare you hit me!" Bolton roared, clenched his fists, and fiercely punched at Tangxing's face. He saw the disdain on Tangxing's face. In the past, he used to look at others with such an expression. Now, he saw it on someone else's face, and the target was himself. The pride in his heart and the pride accumulated in his bones after being flattered for a long time were suddenly ignited and burned. Tangxing tilted his head and dodged the attack of his long fist. When Bolton's body pounced on him, he dodged slightly, and an uppercut hit his ribs under the armpit. Bang! Bolton let out a muffled groan and fell heavily to the ground. When it came to fighting, Tangxing was a professional. His family's ancestral martial arts were these fist and foot skills. When Jocko and Mason caught up, they happened to see the scene of Bolton falling to the ground. The two's expressions changed greatly, and they quickly ran toward the scene of the fight. Jocko stood in front of Bolton and looked at Tangxing, who was closest to Bolton, and asked, "What are you doing? Why did you hit him?" Just now, it was Huang Haoran who asked Bolton why he hit him, and now it was Jocko who asked Tangxing why he hit him. Words only served the fist. This was an irrefutable truth. Tangxing stood closest, and he took it for granted that Tangxing was the guy who attacked Bolton. The reason why he said it was an attack was that Jocko did not believe that a fair and tender little boy like Tangxing would be a match for Bolton in a head-on fight. Tangxing held his head high and said, "He deserves a beating." "How can you talk like that?" Jocko said angrily. They had been in Huaxia for a long time, and they had never been treated so impolitely. The people of Huaxia that he had come into contact with either felt that the Americans were a level higher than them, or they gave them special treatment in order to show their great nation's demeanor and thousand-year-old etiquette. Suddenly, someone treated them like normal people, and he was really not used to it. Bolton was helped up by Mason, but he was still clutching his chest and bowing in pain. He looked at Tangxing with vicious and fierce eyes, but Tangxing was not willing to look at him again. Tangxing had a handsome face, a good family background, a young body, and most importantly, he had a unique and rare skill in this world. He was such a proud boy, how could he care about a few Americans with impure motives? You ask him, Tangxing said. Of course, Jocko would not ask. He did not need to ask. He knew the ins and outs of the matter better than anyone else. However, how did these guys who looked like students get involved? Did they know something? I will ask my friend, but I want to know the gist of the matter first. Because I saw with my own eyes that you knocked my friend to the ground. That is already illegal. You may be imprisoned. Tangxing curled his lips and said, will I be imprisoned for self-defense? My teacher is Fang Yan. He is knowledgeable and can recite Tao Te Ching backwards. Don't try to bully me. Fang Yan. Recite Tao Te Ching backwards? What is this? Jacob's head was filled with confusion. If you don't want to explain. Jocko said. Then we have to call the police. I think the police will give us a fair and just answer. Of course, if they give an unfair result, I'm afraid we won't just end it like this. Jocko originally wanted to say, let it go. He always felt that this word was very powerful. But after thinking for a long time, he could not pronounce this word. He had to replace it with a simple word. Therefore, he felt that the threat of this sentence was suddenly reduced a lot. Whatever. Tangxing shrugged his shoulders indifferently. Even if you don't call the police, we will call the police. You haven't explained why you three men chased after two little girls. Jacob's eyes were cold. He felt that his heart and liver began to hurt. This question was really their Achilles heel. Of course we can explain. Jacob's expression immediately became angry. He pointed to Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin not far away and said, those two girls. They are liars. They deceived us. Liars. Tangxing frowned slightly. Could it be that these two girls had really done something wrong to others? They took our money and promised to be our models. But they took the money and ran away. This is too much. How can they do this? They are not sincere at all, and they don't keep the spirit of the contract. Jacob's performance was so vivid that it really made people doubt the character of Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin. We chased after them to get the money back. They can't take our money. Because they didn't work for us at all. The other party said it so confidently that Tangxing didn't know how to answer. He turned around and wanted to ask Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin to come over and confront the three Americans on the spot to let them know the truth of the matter. Then, his pupils dilated, and his expression became abnormally strange. When the students blocked the gangsters and bullies in front of them, their teacher, Fang Yan, hugged the two girls and comforted them softly. The two girls fell into his arms, so miserable and weak that I couldn't help but feel sorry for them. How can he do this? Tangxing roared in his heart. Through the incident of beating up Chiba Haomu and single-handedly challenging the students of glorious martial arts school, the image of Fang Yan that he had just established in his heart collapsed instantly. On second thought, Qin Etian must be very angry when he saw what Fang Yan did, right? As long as she had a deeper understanding of Fang Yan's character, she would definitely abandon him. In that case, wouldn't my chances increase a lot? As a result, Tang Cheng's heart became joyful again. He looked around for Qin Etian's figure. Thank God, she saw it all. At this moment, there must be a clear and intuitive comparison in her mind between her chivalrous heart and Fang Yan's broad-minded heart, who was carrying a little girl in one arm, right? He silently gave Fang Yan 32 thumbs up in his heart. Mr. Fang, thank you for everything you have done for me. Chapter 115. If Fang Yan knew what Tangxing was thinking, he would slap him 32 times on the head. He was just yelling at the female students to keep a distance from him and not stand too close to him. In the blink of an eye, 2 little girls threw themselves at him. Do you think he was willing? Have you ever thought about his pain and grievances? Do you know how hard he worked? Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin threw themselves at him and hugged his waist. What could he do? Did he have to push them away forcefully? Moreover, Fang Yan could see that the 2 little girls were really frightened. They didn't come over to take advantage of him on purpose. Who would run hundreds of miles from the city to Xixia Mountain just to take advantage of a man? He was not Lu Dehua, Wu Yanzu, or Gu Tianla. Fang Yan hugged Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin, but his eyes were paying attention to the confrontation between Tang Qing and the foreigners. When the 2 little girls calmed down a little, Fang Yan asked, "Is what they said true?" "What?" Jiang Qin looked up at Fang Yan. Because there was a big difference in height between them, she raised her neck too much. Fang Yan looked down and saw Jiang Qin's snow-white neck. They said. Fang Yan let go of Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin's shoulders, pointed at Jocko, Bolton, and Mason, and said, "You promised to be models for them, but you took the money and ran away." "I don't believe it anyway." Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin were really scared just now. Both of them were lovers of calligraphy and painting, and they learned meticulous brushwork from Mr. Li Sanqing at school. Mr. Li Sanqing had always thought that Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin were the most talented among the many students. Jiang Qin's comprehension was higher than Yuan Lin's. Jiang Qin was good at painting small scenes, although the scale was not broad enough. But it was novel and touching. Yuan Lin was greedy for novelty, but she didn't have the ability to control the layout of the aura. Therefore, he was not as optimistic as Jiang Qin. Mr. Li Sanqing often asked his students to walk out into the crowd and into nature. Copying famous artists, imitating pictures or photos, the scene was there, but the feelings were gone. In the end, it couldn't compare to the soul that he personally comprehended outside. It was the season when maple leaves were in full bloom. It was not the first time that Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin had come to Xixia Mountain to sketch. He didn't expect to encounter such a thing on this trip. When they saw Fang Yan, they rushed over as if they had met their savior. She threw herself into Fang Yan's arms and temporarily forgot about the danger outside. They didn't even hear what Jocko and Fang Yan's students said. Now that they heard it from Fang Yan's mouth, Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin glared at the same time and jumped out of Fang Yan's arms angrily. Yuan Lin said angrily, "Shameless. How could they say such a thing? When did we ever take their money? Those old hooligans. They did bad things and found such a dignified excuse to push the blame on us. They said they were reporters from National Geographic and wanted Yuan Lin and me to be their models. We didn't take their money at all. They wanted to give us money, but we confiscated it. I knew they weren't good people, so I deliberately said I needed to go to the toilet, and then Yuan Lin and I ran away. They chased after us, but luckily we met you." After listening to the 2 girls' explanation, Fang Yan roughly understood what had happened. He smiled and comforted them, saying, "Don't worry, I'm here." After hearing Fang Yan's words and seeing his confident and gentle smile, Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin's eyes became a little red. In such a dangerous situation, it was indeed a happy thing to have someone willing to stand up for you and protect you. "Shall we go talk to them?" Fang Yan asked. "Okay," Jiang Qin said. "Let's go confront them. Let's make it clear in person." Fang Yan brought Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin to Jocko and the others and said with a smile, "I heard you speak Hua Xia language just now. It seems that there are no obstacles between us." Fang Yan looked at Jocko, who was standing at the front, and said, "I'm a teacher, the teacher of these students standing in front of you. At the same time, on this Xianxia mountain, I'm also their only guardian. All their mistakes and responsibilities will be borne by me. Of course, if they do anything to show their faces, I'll also enjoy some of the glory. Also, the two girls you were chasing are my friends. Fang Yan pointed at Jiang Qin and said, when I first came to Huaqing, I rented their house. Fang Yan's words were not to explain to Jocko and the others, but to explain to his students. In public, under the gaze of countless students, the two girls had inexplicably thrown themselves into his arms instead of into Tangqing's arms, or into the arms of any other boy. What would they think of their teacher? Only then did everyone understand that these two girls were Mr. Fang's old friends. In this case, it was understandable why they had thrown themselves into Fang Yan's arms. Because they had met someone they knew. In such a critical situation, they would naturally choose to seek comfort from the person they trusted the most. However, the situation I've learned is completely different from what you've said. They said they didn't take your money, and that you were the ones who were plotting against them, so they ran away out of fear. Based on my understanding of them, I believe what they said is the truth. No, this is slander, Jocko said angrily. They took our money, 3,000 yuan. They're lying. You're friends, so of course you're biased towards them and make an unfair judgment. They took your money, what evidence do you have? Fang Yan asked. What evidence do we have? Jocko said. We trusted them wrongly. In the end, they ran away after getting the money. This is too disappointing. Too disappointing. There are too many liars in Huaxia. We didn't take your money. Yuan Lin had a bad temper. She flipped open her pockets to prove her innocence, saying, we don't have a single cent in our pockets. Who knows if you hid it on the road? Jocko said with a sneer. This mountain is so big. If you hid the money, who could find it? You hooligans. Yuan Lin's tears were about to flow out. They were desperately running just now. How could they have the time and mood to hide money on the road? Besides, they didn't take a cent from these people at all. You said you gave them 3,000 yuan, but you can't show any evidence. However, we saw you chasing these two little girls with our own eyes. All of us are witnesses. Fang Yan said with a sharp voice. Your behavior has violated the law of our country. Didn't you say you want to call the police? If you don't call the police, we'll do it for you. We did chase them, but it was to get our money back. Your students hurt my colleagues, and we saw it with our own eyes. Jocko scanned around and said, if there were cameras, this scene must have been recorded. The cameras are also our evidence. Your friend pushed me first. Huang Haoren jumped out and said. Tangqing helped to stop Bolton, which indirectly helped Huang Haoren. Now they wanted to pour dirty water on Tangqing. Huang Haoren certainly couldn't let Tangqing suffer. Fang Yan waved his hand and said, if we are wrong, we are naturally willing to bear the responsibility. We will bear all the responsibility. If you are wrong first, then no matter who you are, you have to bear the same responsibility. Fang Yan looked at Huang Haoren and said, Haoren, call the police. Huang Haoren nodded and immediately took out his mobile phone to call the police. Jocko and his two companions looked at each other. There was some panic in their eyes. Ah! Bolton suddenly covered his chest. It hurts. It hurts. I'm dying. I'm going to die, I can't. Oh, God, help me. Jocko looked worried and said anxiously, my friend was hurt by you. We have to go to the hospital immediately. With that, he and Mason supported Bolton to escape the scene, regardless of the reaction of Fang Yan and the others. Isn't it too fake? Everyone thought in their hearts. He was fine just now. How could he suddenly be in such pain? Wait! Fong Yen shouted. Jocko didn't look back and threatened, what do you want to do? I'm warning you, if there's anything wrong with my companion, you will all have to bear the responsibility. Not only your companion has a problem, but all three of you have a problem. Fong Yen said. We have already called the police. If you insist on leaving, it will be considered as absconding. I am a civilized person. Don't force me to be uncivilized. Jocko didn't even reply. He just wanted to leave this damn place and these annoying guys as soon as possible. This was a bad start for them, and it was really bad luck for them. Fong Yen raised his toes, and a stone on the ground directly attacked Bolton's calf bone as if it had eyes. Gotcha! Bolton let out a blood-curdling scream as his body fell heavily to the ground. Fong Yen raised his toes again, and another stone flew up and hit Jacob's back heavily. Jacob let out a muffled groan and wanted to continue running. He didn't expect that after taking 2 steps, his legs would give way and he fell to the ground. He still had an expensive camera hanging around his neck. As he fell forward, the camera also hit the stone fiercely. With a bang, it fell to the ground and broke into pieces. Seeing that his 2 companions were attacked one after another, Mason ran faster. Fong Yen searched again and again, but there were no small stones under his feet. Here. At the same time, a stone flew in the direction of Fong Yen. Thank you. Fong Yen didn't look at it and kicked the stone away. The stone flew toward Mason's body. When Fong Yen felt that the force on his foot was wrong and saw that the stone was the size of a bowl, he couldn't help but be shocked. Who was trying to frame him? If such a big stone were to hit Mason's body, would that blondie still be alive? Fong Yen wailed and ran toward the stone he kicked. You wait. Chapter 116. Bang! The stone smashed on the back of the mountain guardian stone. There was a crisp sound and sparks flew. Fong Yen looked at Mason who was pressed under him and asked, Are you okay? Mason shook his head and then nodded. A foul smell came and he was so scared that he peed his pants. Can you imagine that scene? When he turned around to look, a big stone whistled toward his head. There was also a young guy who was chasing him while shouting at him to wait a minute. Could he wait? Waiting was only a dead end. Therefore, he ran even harder. As a result, he was pressed to the ground from behind and the stone flew over his head. It was too exciting. Fong Yen smelled the foul smell of urine and got up from his body in disgust. He said, You're already a big man, do you have to wear a diaper every time you go out? Mason didn't understand what Fong Yen was saying and he wasn't in the mood to listen. He was scared and his body was lying there like a puddle of mud. Fong Yen knew that he couldn't run anymore, so he didn't put up any guard against him and walked back to the group of students. When the students saw Fong Yen came back, they applauded and cheered. Mr. Fong, that kick just now was so cool. Mr. Fong, you caught up with the stone that was kicked. You're the Superman in our hearts. Mr. Fong who chased the stone and shouted, Wait a minute was so cute. Mr. Fong, can you be my male god? Chinitian. Fong Yen shouted. Chinitian, who was wearing a white sportswear of an unknown brand and white sports shoes, came out from the crowd. He looked at the angry Fong Yen and asked, Fong Yen, what's the matter? Fong Yan's face darkened even further. He quickened his steps and stood in front of Chinitian, whispering, I've told you to call me Mr. Fong in front of the students. How can you be so rude? You're making me lose face by calling my name, okay? Chinitian smiled like a spring flower and looked at Fong Yen without blinking with his bright eyes. He didn't care about his anger at all and said in a low voice that only the two of them could hear, You said it, but I didn't. Chinitian. Fong Yan suddenly raised his voice. He couldn't always whisper to each other. The students would misunderstand their relationship. There were rumors in Rosefinch Secondary that Chinitian was pursuing his teacher. Because the parties involved had never responded, and the relationship between them was too distant. Therefore, the rumors were not hot enough. However, Fong Yan would never do something like adding fuel to the fire. "Why did you throw the stone at me?" When the stone flew over, someone shouted, "Here." At that time, he didn't listen carefully enough. When Fong Yan solved the stone problem and thought about it carefully, he found that the voice was very similar to Chinitian's voice. "I saw you looking for it, so I thought you wanted it," Chinitian said. "I was looking, but why did you throw such a big stone?" Fong Yan said angrily. "Do you know how dangerous it is?" "I know," Chinitian said. "I also know that you can solve it." Chinitian pointed at Mason, who was lying on the ground, and said, "You see, I was right." Chinitian. Fong Yan wanted to shout some threatening words to punish Chinitian. Fong Yan wanted to shout, "Chinitian, I want to deduct your credits. Chinitian, I want you to be older than Chinitian. Ask your parents to come to the school to find me, Chinitian." But all these threats seemed to be no threat to Chinitian. What could he do to a student who was sent by the school principal? You really have no idea what to do with such a student. "What do you want to say?" Chinitian asked. "Don't do this next time," Fong Yan said. Bolton's leg was injured, Jaco's camera was broken, and Mason was so scared that he wet his pants. The three of them would never think about escaping again. While waiting for the police to come, everyone listened to Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin repeat the cause of the incident. Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin were so beautiful, but Jaco and Mason were so bad. The more beautiful Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin were, the more bad Jaco and Mason were. The students of Class 9 were filled with righteous indignation after listening to their story. The girls were busy comforting the two cute and beautiful little Lolas. While the boys were comforting them, they also tried to find out their phone numbers and solemnly promised that the next time they went out to draw, they would be willing to be free bodyguards by their side. If they were thirsty, they would bring water, and if they were sick, they would bring medicine. They also said that they were completely different from Jacob, Mason, and Bolton. They despised perverts the most. Tang Cheng, who was standing beside Chinitian, pursed his lips and said, "Looks like those two girls are very popular." Chinitian looked at him and said indifferently, "They are indeed very cute." While they were talking, Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin broke through the encirclement of the boys and walked towards Chinitian. Jiang Qin looked at Chinitian, who was a head taller than her, and said, "Are you Senior Chinitian?" "I am Chinitian," Chinitian said with a smile. "Is it really you?" Yuan Lin's voice became excited. "Senior Tian, you are our idol. We already knew you when you were in number 1 middle school. We even went to number 1 middle school to look for you, but we didn't see you." "That's really regretful," Chinitian said. She took the initiative to extend her hand to Yuan Lin and said, "It's not too late to get to know each other now, right?" "It's not too late, it's not too late." Yuan Lin quickly shook hands with Chinitian. "My name is Yuan Lin." "My name is Jiang Qin," Jiang Qin said as she shook hands with Chinitian. Chinitian looked at Jiang Qin and said, "What a beautiful girl. When Fong Yan lived in your house, he must have given you a lot of trouble, right?" Jiang Qin looked at Chinitian with sharp eyes and didn't know why she would say such a thing. "It's all right. Fong Yan is a very easy person to get along with," Jiang Qin said. "You have to call him teacher," Chinitian said. "I know. I have always called him Teacher Fong Yan," Jiang Qin explained. "Good girl." Chinitian touched Jiang Qin's head. Jiang Qin suddenly felt a little awkward and felt a little wronged. But he didn't understand where this awkwardness and grievance came from. The scenic police finally arrived. They were shocked when they saw the three Americans lying on the ground. The leading fatso policeman shouted and said, "What's going on? How can you hit people? Who hit people?" Fatso was too fat. The peak of Xianxia Mountain was halfway up the mountain. There were no elevators or cars, so they could only climb it by human strength. This was too painful for Fatso. He cursed as he climbed. He had been suppressing his anger for a long time. When he finally reached the destination, he was even more unhappy when he saw the three foreigners lying on the ground. If this kind of thing wasn't handled well, it would become a diplomatic dispute. He hated the perpetrators, who caused him trouble even more. "I hit them," Fang Yan said. "Me too." Tangxing walked to Fang Yan's side and stood side by side with him. At this time, he couldn't let Fang Yan be the only one in the limelight. "Me too. I hit them too." The boys stood out one by one and all chose to stand with Fang Yan and Tangxing. The fatso policeman was furious and said, "You have the right to hit people. Who allowed you to hit people? Don't you know that hitting people is against the law? So what if you have more people? Believe it or not, I will arrest all of you." Fang Yan looked at the fatso policeman with an unfriendly expression and said, "Shouldn't you first ask what happened?" "Of course I will. Go to our station and ask," the fatso policeman said. "You are students. Which school are you from? Come, all of you, come with me." These students made him unhappy, and he was ready to make these students unhappy. "You let me climb half of Tian Shan Mountain, and I will let you follow me down the mountain. We just went up the mountain, and I have to take my students on a trip," Fang Yan explained. The fatso policeman sneered and said, "You want to go on a trip after hitting people? How about a day trip to prison?" Seeing this scene, Qiao Lei got out of the crowd and began to make a phone call. Soon, the phone was connected. After Qiao Lei said a few words on the phone, he held the phone and walked to the fatso policeman, motioning him to answer the phone. "What?" The fatso policeman stared at Qiao Lei vigilantly and asked with an unfriendly expression. "Captain Qiao Zhenya, please answer the phone," Qiao Lei said. "Captain Qiao." The fatso policeman was shocked. Although Qiao Zhenya was not his direct superior, his rank was much higher than his, and he was a strong contender for the deputy chief of the Tianhe branch. Even the chief of the Xianxia Mountain Police Station had to curry favor with him, so how could he dare to offend him? The fatso policeman quickly took the phone from Qiao Lei and said enthusiastically, "Captain Qiao." "Be serious," Qiao Zhenya said on the phone. With just these 4 words, he hung up the phone. The fatso policeman was sweating. He handed the phone to Qiao Lei and asked, "Who is Captain Qiao to you?" F***CKU. Fang Yan completely exploded. He pointed at the fatso policeman's face and scolded, "Why couldn't you just enforce the law from the beginning? Why did your attitude change so much after a phone call? Are you working for the law or for power? We have always been on the side of justice. Why can't you change your attitude only through connections?" Fang Yan pointed at Jocko Messon Bolton and the other 2 lying on the ground and said, "I thought people like them were annoying, but your behavior is 1,000 times more annoying. You are Hua Xiao's man, and you are a policeman. What kind of people are standing in front of you? They are students, the hope of our country's future. Your behavior did not make them love you, but made you look like a scoundrel. You want them to be influenced by you. You want them to become like you." Fang Yan waved his hand and shouted, "I don't agree." Chapter 117. Ever since he was a child, the person Fong Yan was most afraid of was his grandfather, Lu Gong. The reason he was afraid was because every word that his grandfather, Lu Gong, said was correct. You couldn't refute it, and you had no way to refute it. He was selfless and always stood in the most impartial position to evaluate some things. When it came to some major issues of right and wrong, he would stick to his original heart and never waver. He always stood on the side of justice. If you argued with him and refuted him, then you would stand on the opposite side of justice. Fong Yan was afraid of Lu Gong, but he also respected Lu Gong. In his body flowed the Fong family's hardworking, persistent, and competitive blood, but also mixed with the Lu family's erudition, stubbornness, and politeness. As for the little bit of despicable factor, it was completely self-taught after growing up. He didn't get anyone's inheritance or guidance. Lu Gong, like his name, was unyielding and couldn't be bothered with even a grain of sand in his eyes. Therefore, Lu Gong said that he only had 1.5 friends in his life. Fong Yan was much gentler than Lu Gong. He knew how to make choices and compromise, but on some things, he also had his own bottom line and reverse scales that he would not hesitate to protect with his life. In Fong Yan's view, Jocko, Bolton, and Mason were really annoying. They were perverts, beasts, and scum that everyone despised. They broke the law, and if the motive of the matter was found out, what awaited them would be the punishment of the law. However, the behavior of this police officer, Fatso, was already hateful. His attitude was rude and unreasonable, and he did things according to his authority. Such behavior might not violate the law, but it would only form a common perception in society that it was easy to get things done with money and power. When you encountered a problem, your first reaction was not how to solve the problem, but who to find and how many gifts to give. Where was the hope of this country? High school students were at the critical stage of gradually getting out of their immaturity and gradually coming into contact with society, and slowly moving towards maturity. If they saw this scene, what kind of impact would it have on their hearts? This was also the reason why Fong Yan flew into a rage on the spot and shouted, "I don't agree. I don't agree with your blasphemy and dereliction of duty. I don't agree with my students being influenced by you. I don't agree with them eventually becoming like you. When the youth is rich, so is the country. If the youth were strong, the nation would be strong. If the youth is magnanimous, the country will be happy and healthy. What is right, and what is wrong. It doesn't matter whether they are Americans or not, and it doesn't matter who is standing behind us. All you have to do is investigate, ask, and find the truth. Bring the bad guys to justice and let the good guys be innocent. You are a policeman. This is what you should do." Fong Yan pointed at Fatso's face and said bluntly. Lu Tao was scolded harshly. He had never been humiliated like this in all his years as a police officer. He wanted to retort, but he was worried that he would offend Captain Chao Zhenya. Now that Chao Zhenya stood up for them, who knew what kind of powerful people would stand up behind the other students? If he didn't say anything and let this little teacher scold and attack him, he would be too aggrieved and flustered. After all, on this Xianxia mountain, he was considered a leader, and he couldn't not raise his head in front of his subordinates. Lu Tao was like an enraged fat wolf. He glared at Fong Yan for a while, then roared in a hoarse voice, "Zhang Dekai, you will investigate this assault case. You must be fair and just." After shouting this, he went down the mountain alone without saying goodbye. Zhang Dekai was a young man with glasses. He looked gentle, but he was skinny and had dark skin, like a scholar wrapped in a layer of charcoal. He grinned, revealing 2 rows of snow-white teeth. He walked in front of Fong Yan and said, "May I know how to address you, teacher?" Fong Yan said, Fong as in Fong Xingxing, and Yan as in the descendants of Yan and Huang. Fong Yan's self-introduction stunned Zhang Dekai. After being stunned for a while, he said, "Good name. This name is really mighty and domineering. Teacher Fong Yen taught us a very good lesson today. No matter what Chief Lu thinks, I felt my blood boil when I heard it. Some things, sigh, it's better not to talk about them. However, I can't control others, but I can control myself. In the future, I will definitely be a good police officer and be a good example for the students." Zhang Dekai adjusted his glasses, then straightened his body and saluted Fong Yen. He said, "Today, we have disappointed Mr. Fong and the students. We are very sorry. Please watch our performance from now on." The two colleagues behind Zhang Dekai also raised their hands and saluted at the same time. Their eyes were sincere and their expressions were solemn. After listening to Zhang Dekai's confession and seeing their sincere salutes, Fong Yan's heart surged and he felt very gratified. This was the greatness of the Huaxia people. When the country was in danger, there would be a large number of heroes who would stand up and shed their blood to save the country and the people. When etiquette collapsed, there would also be countless grassroots people who would stand up and selflessly contribute day after day, year after year, to be willing to be an example. The latter might not be able to leave their names in history, but they were the backbone of the country and influenced the culture of the country. They were equally great. Fong Yan patted Zhang Dekai's shoulder hard and said, "Thank you. You have also taught my students a very good lesson. I think they will remember today. When they encounter similar things or other things, they will know how to deal with it." Zhang Dekai grinned again and said with a little embarrassment, "Who can tell me what is going on?" Fong Yan waved to Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin, indicating that the two parties involved would explain the whole process of the incident. The truth of the matter was soon revealed. Jocko, Mason, and Bolton claimed that Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin ran away after receiving their modeling commission of 3,000 yuan, and they chased after them in order to get their money back. However, after investigation, it was found that the three of them had not paid any fees to the two women. What was more ironic was that, under the leadership of Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin, everyone rushed to the scene of the crime, which was the place where Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin had just begun to draw. Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin took out their wallets and some accessories from their toolboxes. Jiang Qin's wallet only had a few hundred yuan in it, which was nothing special for students nowadays. Yuan Lin was obviously a rich young woman. The brand name wallet itself was worth a lot, and there were more than 1,000 yuan in cash, 2 bank cards, and a brand name watch in it. The value of these things added up to tens of thousands of yuan. Not to mention the value of the LV Classic toolbox that she used to store her paints and drawing paper. They abandoned so many things and ran away for the sake of Jaco's 3,000 yuan. Was there something wrong with their brains? Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin were the smart type at first glance, so there was nothing wrong with their brains. Then, if there was nothing wrong with the brains of Jocko Messon Bolton and the other two, then they were lying. Zhang Dekai and his colleagues put handcuffs on Jocko Messon Bolton and the other two, and prepared to take them back to the station for further interrogation. "Mr. Fong, the truth has been revealed. I promise that this time, we will not let our students be wronged." Zhang Dekai stood in front of Fong Yen and said with a serious face, "Thank you for your hard work." Fong Yen said, "This is what we should do." Zhang Dekai said with a smile, "Mr. Fong just said that this is our duty. Isn't it?" "Ha! Yes." Fong Yen also laughed. "You are polite to us, so we will be polite to you. You treat us like air, so we will certainly not speak kindly to you. Isn't this reasonable?" "Yes, it is reasonable," Zhang Dekai said with a laugh. The bad guys were taken away, and the good guys naturally had to continue their trip. Because of the impact of this matter, everyone's trip was delayed. They had to climb to the top of the mountain before dark and rest in the hotel at the top of the mountain at night. Early the next morning, everyone went to watch the sunrise. Fang Yan let Tangqing and Huang Haoren lead the team and continued to lead the 9th class to climb to the top of the mountain. He said a few words to Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin, and then went to catch up with the rest of the team. The boys were reluctant to part with Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin, and some of them were bold enough to invite them to go to the top of the mountain to watch the sunrise. Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin smiled without saying anything, and did not make it clear whether they would go or not. When the crowd dispersed, only Fang Yan, Jiang Qin, and Yuan Lin were left in the dense forest. Fang Yan looked at the two girls and said with a smile, "Pack up and go back down the mountain quickly. Your family will be worried if you go back late." Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin looked at each other and did not answer Fang Yan's question. Fang Yan squatted down to help the two girls clean up the easel and brush that had been kicked away by Mason. On the grass in the distance, he found several pieces of drawing paper that had fallen here. He picked up the drawing paper and found a familiar figure on it. He took the drawing paper and glanced at Jiang Qin, and Jiang Qin also happened to look at him. Seeing the drawing paper in Fang Yan's hand, Jiang Qin reacted. "Ah!" she cried out in surprise and quickly ran towards Fang Yanfei. Crash! Jiang Qin snatched the drawing paper from Fang Yan's hand and said angrily, "You! How can you casually look through other people's things?" "I have never seen such an ugly Lu Dehua," Fang Yan said with a smile. "You drew our idol Lu Dehua like this. Have you ever thought about the feelings of us fans?" "Who said this is Lu Dehua?" Jiang Qin pouted and said. "What I drew was an ugly monster." "What ugly monster?" Yuan Lin's puzzled eyes looked at Jiang Qin and Fang Yan and said, "Let me see how ugly it is." "No." Jiang Qin refused and wanted to put the drawing paper in his hand into the box. "If you don't want to give it, then don't give it." "Who wants it?" Crash! Yuan Lin said that she didn't want it, but when Jiang Qin was unprepared, she snatched the drawing paper. Chapter 118. Against the backdrop of the red maple leaves, a young man in a white shirt stood among the trees. A gentle breeze ruffled his soft black hair. The sun was shining brightly, and his handsome cheeks were gilded with a layer of almost transparent golden color. He held his head high, and a faint smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. His whole body was filled with a kind of comfortable pride and complacency. When Yuan Lin saw the figure in the picture, she suddenly became happy. She giggled and said, "Sweetheart, who is this ugly monster?" Jiang Qin got up and chased Yuan Lin, shouting angrily, "Yuan Lin, you bad guy, give the painting back to me, give it back to me." Yuan Lin grabbed the drawing paper and circled around the maple trees and Jiang Qin. She refused to return the drawing in her hand and said, "No, I won't. I won't give it back. If you don't tell me who this ugly monster is, I won't give it to you." "Give it to me, no." "Will you give it to me or not?" "No." Yuan Lin. Jiang Qin stopped. Her cheeks were red, and she looked at Yuan Lin with tears in her eyes. A pitiful look of indignation and humiliation. Young girls' feelings were always poems. The vague love for a boy was their most private and sensitive taboo. They were ashamed to admit it and annoyed to see others. Yuan Lin's behavior undoubtedly exposed her feelings in front of the person involved, which made her ashamed and angry, and her tears flowed out uncontrollably. Seeing Jiang Qin crying, Yuan Lin hurried over. She stuffed the painting paper into Jiang Qin's hand, held Jiang Qin's shoulder, and said with heartache, "Sweetheart, don't cry, I'm joking with you. It's my fault, it's all my fault. I won't ask, okay? I won't ask anymore." Jiang Qin wiped his tears with the back of his hand and cried even more sadly. I didn't even cry when you made my idol, Lu Dehua, look so ugly. Why are you crying? Fang Yan said helplessly. You're so annoying. Jiang Qin stomped his feet angrily. I told you it's not Lu Dehua. Nongpa. I thought this person looked a bit like Nongpa. So you guys. Fang Yan pretended not to see the characters on the paper and deliberately led them in the wrong direction. Who said it was a farmstead? Why would I draw him? Jiang Qin was even angrier. She was so angry that she forgot to continue crying. I can draw whoever I want. What does that have to do with you? Yes. It has nothing to do with me. Fang Yan raised his hands in surrender. He knew that this was not the time to provoke this girl. Hurry up and pack up, I'll send you down the mountain. I'm not going back today, Jiang Qin said. What? Fang Yan widened his eyes and looked at Jiang Qin. Even Yuan Lin looked at her companion in surprise. Didn't this girl discuss with her before making a decision? I said, we're not going back tonight, Jiang Qin said. She turned to look at Yuan Lin and said, haven't you always wanted to see the sunrise at Shisha Mountain? We're not going back tonight. We'll wake up early tomorrow to see the sunrise. We can even bring a drawing board and draw it. Didn't the teacher say that? Only by experiencing it yourself can you draw that kind of breathtaking scenery. This is a good opportunity. What do you mean a good opportunity? Yuan Lin laughed in her heart. Before Fang Yan came, why didn't I hear that you wanted to stay at the top of the mountain to see the sunrise? Why didn't I hear that this was a good opportunity? But we agreed to go home tonight, Yuan Lin said worriedly. Won't your mom be worried if we don't go back? My mom must be worried to death. Idiot. Can't we just call back and tell them? Jiang Qin said. Just tell them that we're going to paint the sunrise and won't go back tonight. No. Yuan Lin shook her head. My mom will definitely not agree, and neither will your mom. We're girls. Jiang Qin looked at Fang Yan and wanted to say something but stopped. Fang Yan pretended not to understand the pleading look in Jiang Qin's eyes and said, Yuan Lin is right. If you two girls don't go back tonight, your family will be worried. If you really want to see the sunrise and paint it, then go back and discuss with your parents. Come back when they agree, or let them accompany you. Isn't that better? Better my ass. Jiang Qin curled her lips and said. Who would want to travel with their parents? Yuan Lin also nodded vigorously and said, that's right. Don't do this and don't do that. It's so annoying. Fang Yan was very hurt. He ignored the rebellious mentality of children at this age. Jiang Qin seemed to have made up his mind. He looked at Yuan Lin and said, you call your mom, and I'll call my mom. We'll tell them that we're with a lot of classmates and nothing will happen. We'll also stay on the top of the mountain tonight and get up early tomorrow morning to watch the sunrise. After watching the sunrise, we'll go back. What can happen? Yuan Lin was also persuaded by Jiang Qin and said, okay. Then shall we call now? Yes. Jiang Qin nodded. If my mom doesn't believe it, you can testify for me. If your mom doesn't believe it, I'll also testify for you. Happy cooperation. The two girls clapped their hands together happily. Fang Yan was speechless. From their conversation, it could be heard that they must have done many things like helping each other hide and deceive. Seeing that Jiang Qin was about to take out his phone to make the call, Fang Yan stopped him and said, are you really going to stay? Of course, Jiang Qin said. For art, Yuan Lin said. Then, I'll make the call for you, Fang Yan said. You'll make the call for us. Jiang Qin looked at Fang Yan uncertainly. If her mom knew that Fong Yen was also at Shisha Mountain, wouldn't she be more determined to call them back? Yes. I'll make the call for you. Fong Yen nodded. It's not a bad thing. Why must you lie to them? If they don't know the truth about you, they'll be worried and scared the whole night. It's not easy being a parent. Why should we let them worry about us? But, what if my mom doesn't agree? Jiang Qin said worriedly. I'll explain to her. She'll agree, Fong Yen said. What if she doesn't agree, I'll send you down the mountain and you can take a car back, Fong Yen said. Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin discussed for a while and finally decided to compromise. Jiang Qin dialed his mother's number with his phone and said, Mom, Fong Yen wants to talk to you. Fong Yen took the phone from Jiang Qin and said with a smile, Sisterly, I'm Fong Yen. I haven't seen you for a long time. I really miss your cooking. Fong Yen. Sister Li's voice paused for a moment. If you miss me, come over for dinner when you have time. You're with Jiang Qin. What's up? Sister Li, it's like this. Fong Yen explained with a smile, I brought my students to Shisha Mountain for a trip and happened to meet the two girls, Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin, who came to the mountain to paint. They heard that my students and I were going to spend the night at the hotel on the mountain and watch the sunrise tomorrow morning, so they wanted to come with us. I said I'll call you and ask for your permission. If you agree, I'll promise them to stay. If you don't agree, I'll send them down the mountain and let them take a car home. Sisterly thought for a while and said with a hearty smile, if they want to watch the sunrise, then let them stay. If it's only the two of them, I won't feel at ease. But with Mr. Fong, I believe you can take good care of them. I'll take good care of them, Fong Yen promised. Fong Yen, thank you, Sister Leaf said gratefully. It's nothing. Anyway, there are other students to take care of. Jiang Qin is also my student. Yes, Sister Li answered. Fong Yen, I'm sorry. You didn't do me wrong. Fong Yen smiled. You just love your daughter too much. Yes, Sister Li said. As a mother, how can I not love my child? After hanging up, Fong Yen looked at Jiang Qin, who was looking at him with a worried face, and said, Your mother agreed. Really? Jiang Qin had an incredulous look on his face as he asked, You really agreed? He really agreed. Why did she agree? Jiang Qin asked in confusion. Because I believe in her, and she believes in me, Fong Yen said with a smile. Jiang Qin shook his head and said, I don't understand. She really didn't understand. If her mother believed in Fong Yen, why would she chase Fong Yen out of the house? It's my turn. It's my turn, Yuan Lin said. She dialed her mother's number, said a few words, and handed the phone to Fong Yen. Fong Yen took the phone, and before he could speak, a pleasant woman's voice came from the phone. Is this teacher Fong Yen? I know you. Yuan Lin said she wants to watch the sunrise at Shisha Mountain, so please help take care of her. I will, Fong Yen promised. Thank you. I'll treat you to a meal when I have the chance, the woman said warmly. You're too polite, Fong Yen said with a smile. After hanging up, Fong Yen began to doubt the authenticity of all this. Could Yuan Lin have deliberately dialed a number and asked someone to pretend to be her mother to talk to him? However, from the woman's voice, she didn't sound like a liar at all. Because a liar didn't have that kind of gentle and calm temperament. Since Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin's families had agreed, Fong Yen didn't object to them spending the night at Shisha Mountain. Fong Yen walked in front with two toolboxes, leading the way, while Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin walked behind with their drawing boards on their backs. Not far behind the three of them, a couple wearing sun hats followed them at a moderate pace. They were leisurely taking photos, but from time to time, they would look at the three of them. You're tuning in to the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.